Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 145, Yama Cave. On the surface battlefield, a voice sounded in Woojin's headset. Team 3 of Class 2, this is the command center. Please retreat immediately. The task of annihilating the Behemoth will be undertaken by Colonel Liang Jian's team. The instructions were repeated continuously. However, Woojin did not retreat immediately. Team members Arnew's mecha was being invaded by corpses, and those things were drilling into the gaps of the mecha like maggots. If it is not dealt with quickly, not only will the mecha be scrapped, but the driver may also be in danger. Arnew, hold on. Woojin controlled the mecha and quickly formed a seal. Suddenly, a strong wind blew around the mysterious machine invaded by the corpses. The strong wind rotated and soared up, formed a tornado. This is the number 17 mysterious technique, Wind King. The tornado generated a huge suction force, rolling the corpses attached to the mecha into the air. Even the corpses that had crawled into the gaps of the mecha were pulled out and sent to the sky. In the sky, a cloud formed by corpses appeared. When these bodies were pulled into the air, they were broken and twisted by the strong wind. When they fell down, they were already in pieces. After clearing the dead bodies on the mecha, Woojin was about to order Liu Hao to retreat when he heard a violent explosion. Woojin turned around and saw that Liu Hao's mecha was pierced by several ice spears, one of which hit the energy furnace. The energy furnace exploded and blew away the entire chest part of the mecha. Liu Hao, use the emergency escape device. Woojin shouted. Then he saw the escape pod suddenly popped out from behind the head of the mecha and flew into the air. Woojin breathed a sigh of relief. But the next second, several pieces of cold light flashed. The escape pod was completely shattered in mid-air. It turned out that it was cut by the 3 frost flywheels released by Mengji. Damn it. Woojin looked at the giant beast with hatred, then ran to Arnew and carried the mecha away from the battlefield. At this time, Liang Jian's team had not arrived yet. The giant beast Mengji lowered the front of its body slightly, flexed and stretched its hind legs, and dug its 5 claws into the ground, preparing to sprint. It seemed that it didn't want to let Woojin and Arnew go. Suddenly at this time, Mengji didn't know what he felt. He turned his head suddenly. Then he let out a series of low roars. Then he relaxed his body and ran to the left side of the big lake area. While running, his body quickly became transparent and disappeared. What's going on? In the communication channel of Luo Yan's team, Dudu Changxin's voice sounded. Why did Mengji suddenly run away? Luo Yan said in a deep voice. It seems to be afraid of something. It is a high-level giant beast. I'm afraid there are not many things that can scare it. Kang Shun pondered. Liu Yan also said, this is indeed strange. The 2 giant beasts that are about to enter the battlefield are only mid-level. Mengji has no reason to be afraid of them. Captain Yan Wenbo said at this time, look at the movement route map of the giant beasts. Mengji and the next 2 giant beasts, they are all coming from the same direction. Luo Yan looked at the map. Sure enough, the 3 giant beasts all came from the south. Luo Yan couldn't help but look to the south. Is there anything over there? Soon, the 2 mid-level giant beasts that entered the battlefield were cleared by Liang Jian's team and another team. The danger of the underground city was temporarily lifted. However, before Luo Yan's team returned to the city, they received a task from the command center. Retrace the movement route of the giant beast and investigate the reason why the giant beast moved to our city. In an armored command vehicle, Yan Wenbo raised the tablet in his hand and said, this is the content of our mission. The mission level is temporarily set at level 5 and will be adjusted accordingly depending on the results. Next, we will leave the underground city for a few days. The captain looked at Luo Yan again. I heard about your story. The Corps will guarantee you, so don't worry, you can leave the underground city. Dugu Changxin and others looked at Luo Yan curiously. I don't know what happened to him, and he actually needs the Corps to guarantee him before he can leave the city. Luo Yan didn't explain. He returned to his mecha carrier, got into the mecha division lounge, and began to practice. After the convoy drove south for a few days. That day, Luo Yan looked up and saw black cracks in the sky. The branches of the Yangfu. They were winding in the sky, tearing open a gap in another space, and converging towards the south. Everyone, including Luo Yan, looked solemn. Obviously, something strange should have happened over there. After reporting the matter to Guangling City, the underground city responded quickly. The Corps Command asked them to use drones for reconnaissance. So 5 minutes later, a drone flew into the air and flew south under the control of Kang Shun. Luo Yan and others were able to see the images taken by the drone through the barrier in the armored command vehicle. At first, there was only an endless forest in the camera. Not long after, rolling mountains appeared on the horizon. When they arrived here, the branches in the sky were denser. They gathered behind the mountains and tore a gap of astonishing size in the sky. Oh my god. Kang Shun exclaimed. Since the giant beast disaster, I have never seen so many Yamfu cracks. They are concentrated in large numbers and have formed the Yamfu hole. Yan Wenbo, who was already pale, looked even uglier now. He smiled bitterly and said, the Yamfu hole is not a good sign. I heard that a Yamfu hole appeared abroad last year, and it sucked away a city. Liu Yan asked in a low voice, can the hole be closed? Kang Shun shook his head, there is no such technology at present. Gudu Changxin snorted, then we can only watch. Yan Wenbo ignored him, and patted Kang Shun on the shoulder, be careful when flying over the mountains. The hole has invisible gravity, and the drone may be sucked away. Kang Shun nodded slightly. In a blink of an eye, the drone had already crossed the mountains. On the other side of the mountain, there was a plain. There were traces of a city. But at this time, there was a huge thing lying in the city. That thing was so huge. So big that a city couldn't contain it. It looks like a newborn fetus, wrapped in a black sticky afterbirth. Part of the afterbirth is connected to the Yambu cave above. It's as if this huge fetus was just born from the Yambu cave. What is this? Kang Shun's scalp tingled, and he carefully controlled the drone to prevent it from flying over the mountains. Because behind the mountains, in the city, large and small objects kept flying into the air. They were sucked into the Yambu cave. Yan Wenbo gasped, I wish I knew. He continued, I have never seen anything like this, but I'm sure that what is bred in it is definitely not a good thing. Even if it is a behemoth, it is too big. Even a hegemonic behemoth can't reach this scale. Chapter 146, Death. Helicopters, carrier-based transport aircraft, drones, and various flying vehicles flew from the direction of the underground city and landed on relatively flat areas on the mountain. A large amount of supplies were quickly unloaded from various vehicles, and soon, temporary camps appeared on the mountaintop platform. Luo Yan was in one of the helicopters and landed at camp number 4 on the top of the mountain. This is the base camp of the 3rd squad of their surface exploration corps. When they reported their findings, the next day, Guangling City was almost in full force. In addition to sending a large number of manpower and supplies, 2 of the 3 squads of the surface exploration corps were sent out. They were the 1st squad and the 3rd squad. All the members of the 2nd squad stayed in the underground city. When I got off the helicopter, I saw other teams, and they had already gathered in the open space. Chang Zhang, the squad leader of the 3rd squad who loved fitness, was looking around with his hands behind his back. Yan Wenbo hurriedly gathered Luo Yan and other team members. The wind was whistling. All kinds of noises were noisy, but they could not cover up Chang Zhang's voice at all. He was, as his name suggests, with a voice like a bell. Let every team member hear what he said clearly. Listen, next. The mecha battalions from the 2 underground cities of Qingyang and Changping are coming. This will be a joint operation. The specific situation and the tasks of each team will be explained later. Your captain will explain in detail later. Chang Zhang raised a finger. I only have one request. How many people do I see now? After the operation is over, I want to see that many people. Did you hear that clearly? Everyone responded loudly. Clear. Squad leader. Disband. A moment later, the 3rd squad and the 4th team came to their tent. After sitting down, Yan Wenbo took out a tablet and said while looking at it, After we reported what happened here yesterday, the underground city sorted out the information we sent back and contacted the giant beast strategic mansion as soon as possible. They responded very quickly. Guess what? We won the prize, and it was a big prize, but this is not worth being happy about. Yan Wenbo handed the tablet to Kang Shun and asked him to pass it around. The captain continued. The strategic office checked a lot of information and finally found the corresponding content in an ancient book, the Book of Three Evils discovered in Gixu. What we are seeing now should be the Gate of Death in the Three Evils. In the Book of Three Evils, it says at the beginning, Gate of Death, Pima, and Dire Oak. When the three evil spirits appear together, it will be the end of the world. According to the translation of the strategic office's ancient Chinese group, when the three evil spirits, Gate of Death, Pima, and Dire Oak, appear together, it will cause the world of Yama to overlap with reality. In other words, at that time, our world will enter the Yama space. When the two spaces overlap, reality will collapse and be destroyed. Kang Shun handed the tablet to Du Guchangxin. It says here that the Gate of Death is the beginning of the three evil spirits. After it is fully formed, it will summon the two evil spirits, Pima and Dire Oak. And these evil spirits, after descending from the Yamfu cave, will go through three stages: fetal god, evil infant, and corpse immortal. Now, the Gate of Death we have observed is currently in the fetal god stage. At this stage, Sangman is unaware and is the easiest time to be destroyed. Yan Wenbo nodded and said, that's right. So at that time, the elite of the three underground cities will enter the body of Sangman and destroy it from the inside. The task of our group is relatively simple. We just need to stay outside to guard it. Du Guchangxin said dissatisfiedly, we discovered Sangman, and in the end, we had no part in the real work. Yan Wenbo smiled and said, isn't that good? It's easy to get military merit. Besides, as I said before, the operation to destroy Sangman will be carried out by the elite of the three underground cities. We can't be called elite. In addition, the strategic house will transfer a team of Xiangang Dragon Cavalry here. So our elite underground cities will probably just help the Xiangang Dragon Cavalry. Luo Yan got the tablet computer at this time, and when he heard the word Xiangang Dragon Cavalry, he couldn't help but look up. Kang Shun glanced at him and smiled. Zio Luo doesn't know about the Xiangang Dragon Riders yet, right? This is a representative of our humans' highest combat power. There are 36 of them in total, and there will always be 36. Each Dragon Rider drives a mecha, that is at least a god general. It is rumored that the Dragon Riders have a secret mission, but outsiders don't know what it is. But if something big happens on the surface, they will go to solve it. Just like this time. There will be a team of Xiangang Dragon Riders to take charge of the situation. Luo Yan suddenly realized. Then he lowered his head and continued to look at the computer. It said above, the first phase of the battle will be carried out tomorrow. According to the information provided by the strategic office, 108 blasting piles will be driven into the designated position of the Sangman. The combat goal of this phase is to blast the Sangman and separate the afterbirth from the main body, so as to enter the main body and carry out the next step of the battle. The information said, in the fetal god stage, the Sangman will unconsciously attract giant beasts to come and then prey on them as nutrients for growth. Moreover, it will use a layer of afterbirth to protect itself. Therefore, in the first stage of the battle, it is necessary to blast the afterbirth to expose its main body. After the second stage begins, the Xiangang Dragon Riders will lead the elites of each city to enter the main body and carry out annihilation operations. In Guangling, in addition to Dizeng, there are also two squad leaders and several ace mecha masters in each squad who can stand alone and fight against the giant beast. As for the others, they will stay outside to prevent accidents. Time passed by minute. In the blink of an eye, it was evening. There was a huge roar. Luo Yan got out of the tent and raised his head. He saw several huge monsters appearing in the sky. It was a special flying ship developed specifically for carrying mechs. Its shape was like an aircraft carrier that could fly in the sky. It slowly landed on the open space prepared for it early in the morning. A moment later, a mecha walked out of the open hatch. The mechs that came out had different shapes, but without exception, they all had a strong sense of oppression. When the last mecha came out, Luoyang couldn't help but widen his eyes. This mecha was shaped like the legendary centaur. The upper body was human, and the lower body was horse. The mecha was painted with brown vertical stripes, like the stripes on a tiger. There was a pair of green wings folded behind it. The human-like part was covered with armor and a silver-white visor. There were mysterious symbols on the visor. Beside him, Kang Shun whispered, "That's Ying's Heyo. That's a divine machine. It's the mecha of Captain Beluo of Xiang Xing." Chapter 147, Divine Machine and Elite Recruitment. Now Luoyan knew that in addition to the Zuan Ji and the Demon Ji, the third type of mecha was the God Ji. However, in class, the teacher did not explain the God Ji very clearly. He only said that the God Ji was the most special type of mecha. The requirements for mecha masters were also the most stringent. In addition, each God Ji was named after a legendary god, just like the Xingzhou. Classic of mountains and seas. Western Mountain says, 320 miles to the west is the Huajiang Mountain, where the Qiashi River flows out and flows northward into the Wishu River. There are many worms in it, and there are many realgas on it. There are many jades, gold, and jade. There are many red millets in its meteorites, and there are many gold and silver in its borders. It is actually the Emperor's flat garden, and the god Ying's Heyo is in charge of it. It has a horse body and a human face, tiger stripes and wings, and it travels all over the world. Its sound is like a pomegranate. Legend has it that 400 miles northeast of Kunlun Mountain, there is a hanging garden in the Emperor of Heaven's garden. This is a garden of the Emperor of Heaven below. This garden is managed by a god named Ying's Heyo. Ying's Heyo has a horse body and a human head, tiger stripes all over his body, and a pair of wings on his back. He can fly into the air and travel around the world. Ying's Heyo has participated in hundreds of wars against evil gods and evil gods, and is one of the righteous gods who protect peace for generations. Although Luoyan doesn't know much about the divine machine, but the name of the god shows that these mechas are absolutely extraordinary. Next, the Xiangang Dragon Riders were warmly welcomed. Of course, such a person was not the turn of Luoyan and other mecha divisions to receive. The action would begin tomorrow. They returned to the tent. The team tent did not distinguish between men and women. Luoyan was the kind of person who did not consider herself a woman. As soon as she entered the tent, she took off her driving suit, put on her underwear, picked up her change of clothes, and went to take a shower. Luoyan went to the logistics department to get a red poison reliever. This is a regular medicine, and now is an extraordinary period. The reliever is free of charge. Luoyan took it back to the tent and gave himself an injection under the gaze of the team members. After the injection, looking at the empty syringe, Luoyan felt emotional. If he had not come to the dungeon and injected the reliever regularly, his red poison would have broken out long ago. And in the common sense class, the teacher said that, unless the realm of visualization enters the Tangsuan stage, it is necessary to inject an antidote to completely eliminate the threat posed by the red poison. It can be seen how overbearing and fierce this toxin is. After injecting the reliever, Luoyan's cell phone rang. He was not surprised. In order to facilitate command, each underground city built a temporary communication base station here, which not only enables battlefield communication, but also allows contact with the underground city at any time. Therefore, the signal sent by the underground city can be received here, and naturally it can also answer the phone. The call was from Yang Lekei. As soon as the call was connected, Yang Lekei's cursing voice sounded on the other end of the phone. Then he said, "Student Luo, you haven't come back yet? The matter of Sangman is confidential. It is not open to the public in the underground city." So Yang Lekei didn't know where Luoyan is now, and what mission he was performing. Luoyan responded with a HMM. Then Yang Lekei said, "I'm investigating the Ministry of Security's seizure of Jiuying. After I returned that day, I went to the bank to find Li Chunlei, but he committed suicide. But I think Li Chunlei might have been silenced. Sent his body to a forensic doctor I know for an autopsy. The forensic doctor detected some drug components in Li Chunlei's body. We are currently investigating the source of these drugs. If we can find them, we should be able to find clues." Luo Yan remembered that day in Zeng's office. Zeng said that tracing the murderer might not be a good thing. So he reminded him, be careful. The one who can instruct the Ministry of Security is not a small person. Don't worry. Who am I? My father is Yang Zhen. Yang Lixi said with a smile. Then he said, I just want to tell you the progress of the matter. I'll talk about the rest when you return to the city. I'll hang up first. Put down the phone. Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly. He took out a small notebook. There were some things written on it. For example, Xing Feng. Now, the 3 words Ministry of Security were written. But at the end, he put another question mark. This is the unstable factor that Luo Yan feels will threaten him. The next day, Luo Yan got up early. Just after breakfast, he heard the noise of the drone group. He saw drones carrying blasting piles heading towards the Sangmentia lying in the city, which was in the fetal stage. In the sky, the Yamfu hole formed by many branches has a tendency to shrink. And the connection between the afterbirth and the whole of the Sangmentia has only a thin black belt. That thing looks like an umbilical cord. Captain Yan Wenbo sighed and then said, I'm going to the toilet. Let's go. You guys get on the mecha and wait. Coming to the mecha cab, Luo Yan checked it. All indicators of the mecha are normal. In addition, there are more fixed components on the mecha. Wait a minute. Each mecha here will be lifted by 16 helicopters and transported to the other side of the mountain. These helicopters for transporting mechs are specially made and each can lift more than 100 tons. However, the number of helicopters is limited, so it is impossible to send so many mechs to the other side of the mountain at the same time. In fact, now these helicopters, called albatrosses, have lifted the mechs of the elite team off the ground and sent them to the battlefield. Just as he was waiting in the mecha, Luo Yan heard a huge roar. Looking out from the panoramic window, it turned out to be one of the mechs of the Xiangang Dragon Riders, and the divine machine Ying Zhao was flapping its wings. This set off a strong wind, and at the same time, countless tiny green symbols like petals and swimming fish appeared around the mecha. Then, Ying Zhao soared into the sky, circled above, and flew steadily to the other side of the mountain. It is worthy of being a divine machine, with flight capabilities, and it does not use any known flight system. It's more like a supernatural power like Zuanshu. Kang Shun's voice rang in the team channel. Then Yan Wenbo came online, and the captain returned from the toilet. A few minutes later, Luo Yan felt the body of the aircraft tremble slightly. It was their team's turn to move. Not long after, outside the panoramic window, Luo Yan saw that the mountains were right under his eyes. 16 albatrosses were hoisting the white dragon and crossing the mountains to the designated location. At this time, the first phase of the battle also came to a critical juncture. After several drones exceeded the flight altitude and were sucked away by the Yanfu hole above, the remaining drones had already driven 108 blasting piles into the outer afterbirth of the Sangmentia. So, in the public channel, Luo Yan heard the countdown to the detonation. 3, 2, 1. All blasting piles, detonate. Chapter 148, Baby Crying. White Dragon. Luo Yan saw a little white light flashing on the outer layer of the Death Gate demon outside the panoramic window. Then the white light became fierce. Groups of flames burst out. In an instant, they became one, forming a strong and powerful roar. Along with this violent explosion, came a terrifying shockwave. The albatross helicopters were still in the air and were shaken. Fortunately, this was in the outer circle of the explosion. If they were close to the city, the shockwave alone would cause these helicopters to explode. The helicopter untied the fixing components, and the mechs of the fourth team fell down one after another. Luo Yan opened all the shock absorbers before falling. In the panoramic window, the ground expanded rapidly. Finally, the mecha fell heavily to the ground and squatted. The ground was smashed into pieces, and a large amount of mud and sand, along with rocks and trees, sprayed up all at once. It sprayed up to dozens of meters in the air, and the strong airflow formed by the shock wave blew it into a billowing smoke. Luo Yan looked at the explosion site at this time. There was a flame rising there, and the afterbirth of the Death Gate evil was blown to pieces. Piece after piece, large and small, like jelly-like soft and sticky jelly splashed in all directions. Densely packed, all over the space. Even the mechs like Jiuying that landed near the foot of the mountain were full of such objects nearby. The strange thing was that these things were actually suspended in the air, not falling, and rolling in the air. At this time, Jiuying saw, after the afterbirth was blown open, in the city, there was a giant fetus lying. It had a round head, chubby hands and feet, and a fat belly. It curled up together, just like a real fetus. But this fetus, lying on the ground, was more than 20 kilometers long. Even the mechs were like children who had strayed into the land of giants in front of it. In addition, the skin of this fetus is pitch black, and the surface is covered with a layer of sticky liquid, as if it was covered with a layer of oil. There are complex, evil patterns on its skin, and these patterns are changing vaguely, rather than being fixed. Suddenly, this fetus cried out, "Wow." The sharp cry made all the mecha masters feel a headache, as if they were hit hard by a hammer. They felt dizzy and painful. Jiuying was no exception. His eyes in the helmet suddenly became bloodshot, and then blood flowed from the corners of his eyes, nose, and ears. His vision became blurred, bizarre, and double vision appeared. At the same time, the fragments of the fetus that were suspended in the surroundings flew back in the cry of the fetus. They quickly condensed into a point and combined into a huge, mysterious door made of fragments of the fetus. The door kept shaking, and there was an illusory light inside the door. The light shrank inward layer by layer, generating an invisible but huge gravitational force. The mecha that had entered the battlefield but had not yet started action. One after another, they were pulled into the gate. Even the magic machine Ying's hair was not spared. Then came the team members like Jiuying who stayed in the outer circle. When they recovered from the headache and dizziness, the mecha had been pulled into the gate. When all the mechas were pulled into the gate quickly flattened and collapsed, and turned into a thick afterbirth, wrapping the fetus below. Asterisk 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 in the cab. Jiuying had a feeling of falling. He controlled the mecha, adjusted the posture, and turned on the shock absorber. After a not so strong vibration, the mecha landed on the ground, but it was pitch black all around. Jiuying had to turn on the light source on the mecha. One by one, the lights came on, illuminating the surroundings. Through the panoramic window, Jiuying found himself in a strange space. There was no light source here. The ground was a strange soft matrix, which sometimes undulated and set off waves. But it was such a ground. But you could see the existence of the road, streetlights, greenways, cars, and buildings. It's just that all these things are covered with pieces of flesh and blood, and they look like a city merged with the tissues of some giant creature. Suddenly, Jiuying remembered the huge, dark fetus. Death Gate Evil. If the three evil spirits appear at the same time, the real space will enter Yanfu. So, will the place where the Death Gate Evil is located also enter its body? At this time, something flashed in the corner of Jiuying's eyes. He controlled the mecha to turn to the right and shone the light. It landed on a building that was half covered with flesh and blood. A figure appeared in a window on the 4th floor. Jiuying turned on a holographic light screen. The window was displayed on the screen. Jiuying enlarged the picture. He saw a person lying on a table in the room. This person was lying on the table on her side, and she seemed to be a woman. But her body had no moisture at all, and her skin did not have the luster that humans should have. It was grey, spotted, and skinny. If her arms were normal, except that they were a little thin, then her legs were seriously deformed. It turned into a hind leg like that of a cat. At this time, the woman turned her head. Under the dense and messy hair, there was a pale face with no eyes, no nose, no ears, and no mouth. There was only a round hole. In that hole, there were small and dense nest teeth, and from time to time, a frog-like tongue would spit out. This. Jiuying frowned, and then tried to contact other members of the team. Soon he found that the communication was seriously interfered. Both the team channel and the public channel were unusable. At this time, the giant beast radar alarmed that a blue energy spectrum signal was approaching. Jiuying immediately opened the database for matching, but there was no result. The giant beast does not exist in the database. Jiuying immediately controlled the mecha, raised the Shenwei rifle, and set up the Hyperion heavy mortar at the same time, ready for battle. A moment later, the soft biological matrix ground trembled slightly, and a black shadow appeared in the light source of the mecha. It was a giant beast shaped like a wild boar, clearly a lily, but its state was obviously abnormal. A pink, tentacle-like thick nerve emerged from its single eye. The hair on its body was almost completely gone, and the exposed parts were covered with blisters of various sizes. Luo Yan zoomed in on the image and saw that inside those blisters, there were actually skinny and deformed people curled up. At this time, the mutated raccoon opened its mouth, but no sound came out, and it ran towards the white dragon. Luo Yan saw that it was just a raccoon and didn't want to waste ammunition. He put away his rifle and took out the long sword Piojun. He wanted to wait for the raccoon to get close and behead it with one sword. But at this moment, a series of fire lines broke through the air, sweeping across the raccoon's four hooves. The body of this mutant beast seemed extremely fragile, and its forelegs were immediately cut off by the shuttle bullets. It fell heavily to the ground, and its body slid forward uncontrollably. Chapter 149. The Ghost. The lily with its limbs broken was still sliding on the ground. In the darkness, there were some flashes of fire. The next second, whoosh, one after another, small missiles flew over and hit the lily, exploding dozens of fireballs. This lily was surprisingly fragile. When these missiles exploded, its body was shattered, and the flaming fragments flew in all directions. There were many monsters with deformed bodies in it. They howled in the flames and slowly died. The energy spectrum signal of the lily disappeared. Luo Yan then heard a low sound of footsteps. A moment later, a mecha walked out from behind the building on the left side of the white dragon. This mecha was slender, like a woman. The main color of the paint was vermilion, with white lines distributed. There were two pieces of armor on the back that looked like insect wings. I don't know what they were used for. After the red mecha took 2 steps forward, a window popped up on Luo Yan's command desk. The mecha red moth invites you to join the communication group. Do you accept? After Luo Yan passed, an image appeared in the window, and the pilot of the mecha red moth appeared on the screen. It was Luo Yan's classmate, Lin Wei. Luo Yan was a little surprised. Why are you here? Your name is not on the combat list. Lin Wei said lightly, I'm participating in this operation as a scholar, so I'm not on the combat list. Scholar. Luo Yan remembered that Lin Wei was quite knowledgeable about the pictographic characters of Gixu. Not long ago, she left the academy for a while. She went to the city to participate in deciphering some inscriptions found in Gixu. Try not to get close to the giant beasts here, Lin Wei said again. Luo Yan cast a questioning look. Lin Wei sent a picture over. Luo Yan received it, and another screen appeared next to the window. On the screen were the people that Luo Yan had discovered before, those who looked like people, but had no water in their bodies and deformed limbs. Fusangi. You can think of them as the cells in the body of Sangmentia. These things will parasitize on the giant beasts that were preyed on by Sangmentia, but not digested completely. Then they will control the giant beasts to attack outsiders. If you attack the giant beast rashly, and the distance is too close, there is a chance that you will be parasitized by Fusangi. So the safest way is to use long-range attack methods to deal with the giant beast. Lin Wei seemed to know a lot about Sangmentia. Even if she couldn't be said to know it like the back of her hand, she knew more about Sangmentia than Luo Yan. Luo Yan asked curiously, how do you know it so clearly? After a moment of silence, Lin Wei said, the person who deciphered the Three Evils book was Dr. Jiuying. She is my mentor in Gixu characters. When deciphering the Three Evils book, I served as her assistant. Luo Yan finally understood. Looking around, Luo Yan said again, so now, are we inside the body of the Sangmentia? What exactly is it? Is it a living thing? Lin Wei said solemnly, it's not completely a living thing. It can only be said that it has some characteristics of a living thing. Our understanding of Escher is also limited to the Three Evils book. According to the description above, Escher is a thing produced based on the underlying rules of the Yambu space. They have some characteristics of living things, but they are different from creatures like Behemoths. In the Three Evils book, Escher and other things are called monsters. Monsters? Luo Yan said softly. Who made the definition? Who wrote the Three Evils book and even the many inscriptions and classics in Gixu? Lin Wei did not respond, but said, the most important thing now is to destroy the Sangmentia and prevent it from continuing to grow. According to the original plan, blow up the afterbirth, enter the body of the Sangmentia, find the life gate and destroy it, and the Sangmentia will disintegrate on its own. But I didn't expect that after the afterbirth exploded, it would stimulate the Sangmen evil, and then capture all the targets marked as threats into its body. This is the importance of experience. Luo Yan said, what is the life gate? It is the place where evil spirits gather. It is mentioned in the Three Evils book. Lin Wei said frankly, Sangmen, Pima, and Iok all have their life gates. When the life gate is broken, the evil spirits will be eliminated. I think it should be something like the core of the giant beast. Luo Yan asked, then how do we find the life gate? Lin Wei replied, although the three evil spirits are monsters, they all appear in human form. The life gate is behind them, located between the second and third lumbar spinous processes. If it is outside, it will be easier to locate. But now we are inside it. At this time, a rustling sound came from outside the mecha. Luo Yan looked outside the panoramic window, and in the buildings, wrapped in flesh and blood on both sides. One by one, the ghosts crawled out. Although these things are all dry, their limbs are deformed, and there is only a whole organ on their faces. But they looked like men and women, old and young. They were dressed differently. They came out in droves at once, densely packed like an ant colony or a tide of insects. Seeing this, Luo Yan got goosebumps all over his body. Let's go. There are too many Fusanki, and they will regenerate soon after being killed. It's not worth fighting. Next to the white dragon, the mecha red moth had turned around and ran. This mecha looked much lighter than the white dragon, but when it stepped on the ground, the soft ground matrix still caused waves of vibration. Luo Yan didn't dare to show off, so he controlled the white dragon and followed the red moth. Not long after, a aborigine rushed out of the darkness in front. This giant beast that looks like a gorilla, just like the previous raccoon. The body was broken, and there were signs of decay. Some places even exposed white bones. There were also herpes-like things hanging on the body, and there were Fusanki inside. With the previous experience, this time, Luo Yan didn't need Lin Wei to remind him. He raised his Shenwei rifle and fired at the beast's head. Bang, bang, bang. The penetrating gunshots rang out in the space. The bullets rubbed against the air, and the surface glowed red. They dragged lines of fire in the body of the Sangmentia and hit the head of the ape. Since these beasts had been corroded by the Sangmentia once, their bodies were fragile, and even the Shenwei rifle could easily penetrate them. When the beast rushed to the middle, its head was blasted into a hornet's nest by bullets one after another, and finally exploded, and fell to the ground. The two mechas white dragon and red moth bypassed the beast's corpse and left. A moment later, countless Fusangi came like a tide, and they passed over the body of the beast like marching ants. After these Fusangi left, the beast was only a skeleton. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 150, Mom. Somewhere in the body of the Sangmentia, chains formed by Yuan Li controlled a Teoti. However, the skin of this Teoti was pale and rotten. A large part of the horn on its head was broken. There were dense blisters here and there on its body. Among those blisters, there were people wearing different clothes, without moisture, with thin and deformed limbs. Take advantage of now. Changxin. The one controlling the Teoti was the Vespa driven by Liu Yan. On the other side, Dugu Changxin's mecha Fidian rushed over quickly. The long spear Langdon in his hand pointed forward. It turned into a flash of lightning. It stabbed into the crotch of the Teoti and broke out from the back. The giant beast was extremely fragile and died on the spot. But at this time, from the body of the Teoti, there were thick things like nerves, which wrapped around the mecha Fidian like tentacles. At this time, the belly snake rushed over, waving a black sword, and slashed the tentacles in a few strokes. Seeing those things spraying green liquid, even if they were cut off, they were still wriggling on the soft matrix ground. Liu Yan's scalp tingled, and she controlled the mecha to step back 2 steps, and then looked into the body of the giant beast. There were basically no organs in the body of the giant beast, and it was filled with those thick nerves. These things seem to be the culprits controlling the activities of the giant beast. Now, they are gradually losing vitality. What are these things? Liu Yan frowned. She had never noticed. On a part of the giant beast's corpse that fell next to the belly snake, the herpes broke one after another, and turbid yellow liquid flowed out. In those liquids, a group of Fusang ghosts crawled out, silently came to the vicinity of the mecha, and then climbed up from the legs of the mecha. Dugu Changxin happened to see this scene in the cab. He quickly reminded, "There is something at your feet." Liu Yan looked down and saw the Fusang ghosts crawling like ants. After cursing a few times, he controlled the mecha and stepped down. After a few steps, the belly snake stepped back a few steps, and there was a pool of blood mud on the ground. Although the Fusangi were trampled into meat paste, they were not completely dead. Their hands and feet were still moving unconsciously, which made Liu Yan step back again and again. "Let's leave quickly," Liu Yan said, and then looked around. "What kind of place is this? It looks like a city, but there are flesh and blood tissues and organs everywhere. It's like being in the body of a giant beast." Dugu Changxin followed his companions and said, "We lost contact with the captain. If we didn't happen to meet him, who knows when we would meet a living person." The two walked and talked. Liu Yan didn't notice it at all. Several Fusangi had already drilled into the gaps of the mecha. Now long distance communication can't be used. It can only work when the distance is close. There is no way to get in touch with the command room. This is troublesome. Dugu Changxin tried many communication modes in succession, but all ended in failure. Suddenly, Vespa made a gesture. Flying electric stopped and took a warning posture. "What's wrong?" Dugu Changxin looked around and found nothing unusual. Liu Yan showed an expression of listening attentively. "Did you hear crying?" "Crying? What crying?" Dugu Changxin looked confused. Then he concentrated, but did not hear the crying Liu Yan mentioned. Suddenly, in the panoramic window, he saw something flash behind an office building. "There is something behind it." Flying Electric raised his rifle and pointed it at the office building where the situation just occurred. Vesper immediately raised his rifle and fired at the area. The bullet shot through the building, causing the flesh and blood covering it to shatter and splash. Among the fragments, a black shadow suddenly pounced on Vesper. Liu Yan quickly controlled the mecha to sideways to avoid it. When the light shone, he saw a black mass falling on the soft matrix ground, causing several nearby buildings to rise and fall. Dugu Changxin also looked over in the cab. Under the light of the two mechas, there was a child squatting there. This child was completely black, with black mucus flowing on the surface, and there seemed to be complex patterns engraved on the skin, which exuded a sinister smell. Liu Yan was stunned. She felt that this thing looked like the Death Gate evil she had seen before. After the afterbirth of that evil exploded, it was the appearance of a black baby. But that baby curled up on the ground, and its body length alone was 20 kilometers. But this one in front of him, it was estimated that it was only more than 20 meters when standing up. Although it was also a giant baby, it was undoubtedly much smaller than the Death Gate evil. What is this thing? Dugu Changxin frowned and did not dare to act rashly. Obviously, the giant baby in front did not look like a giant beast, and it appeared in such a ghost place, so it was obvious that it was not a good thing. At this time, the giant baby raised its head and let out a terrifying cry that froze people's blood. While the shrill cry of a baby echoed in this space. In the cab, Liu Yan and Dugu Changxin screamed at the same time. Their eyes were full of bloodshot, and the blood vessels on their faces and hands suddenly bulged. Blood flowed from the nose and ears. Just as they were bleeding and dizzy, the giant baby finally turned around. There were no facial features on its face. In fact, there was no face. Its face was just a sunken hole, with layers of flesh and blood inside. Between the flesh and blood, there were black and white eyeballs. This thing looked like a fetus that had just been born from the mother's body. There was even a long umbilical cord left at the navel. It took advantage of Liu Yan and Dugu Changxin being unable to move. It jumped up like a frog and pounced on the belly snake. In the cab, Liu Yan barely opened her eyes and saw the face of a giant baby on the panoramic window. Seeing the sunken face and the eyeballs scattered among the flesh and blood. At this time, all those eyeballs were looking at Liu Yan. Liu Yan suddenly raised her hands and pinched her neck. The force was so great that her eyeballs almost popped out. Just when she was about to suffocate, the flying lightning finally arrived. Dugu Changxin roared. The dragon gallbladder stabbed and picked the giant baby off Liu Yan's mecha. The terrifying face left the panoramic window and was out of sight of the countless eyeballs in the face. Liu Yan breathed a sigh of relief. She loosened her hands. Then she reminded hoarsely, "Don't look at its face, especially those eyes. That seems to be able to bewitch us." At this time, the giant baby turned around crying, and the places on its body that were pierced by the dragon gallbladder healed quickly, and there was no trace in a blink of an eye. It was like a real baby, using its hands and feet to crawl on the ground. Quickly, crawled towards Liu Yan again, and from that face, 2 words spit out, "Mom." Chapter 151, Survive. The sound of mom made Liu Yan and Dugu Changxin's scalps tingle, because they could understand it. Because the giant baby actually used human language. The 2 people's heads were in a mess, but instinct drove them to attack the giant baby. Vesper raised his rifle and kept shooting at the giant baby. Lines of fire broke through the air, and there was a smell of burning in the air. The bullets made the giant baby roll on the ground. In a blink of an eye, the magazine was empty. Liu Yan didn't look at the result and opened the armor on the chest of the Vesper. Then 2 Sidewinder missiles were fired from the launch cabin inside. They hit the giant baby accurately. Boom. Boom. In the huge sound of the explosion, the flames soared into the sky, set off violent airflows, and spread to the surroundings. When the strong wind stopped, flames rose from the explosion site and thick smoke billowed. But at this time, crying sounded in the flames, and then a group of black shadows rushed out of the sea of fire and quickly crawled towards the Vesper with thick smoke. The giant baby was not killed by the explosion. Even though most of its hair and body were burnt black, its skin and flesh fell off, revealing its bones. But these injuries healed in the blink of an eye, as if it had an immortal body. "Mom. Mom." It kept screaming and crying as it crawled. Like an abandoned baby, it was crying to its biological mother about its grievances. Beads of sweat appeared on Liu Yan's forehead, and she whispered in her helmet, "Don't come over. Don't come over." The belly snake raised the rifle with the magazine changed and shot at the giant baby again. But this time, the giant baby's apostrophe body suddenly swelled, and then a bunch of black shadows shot out from under the black skin. Those were green organs like intestines. They intertwined to form a flesh and blood shield on the top of the giant baby's apostrophe head and body. Lines of fire bombarded this shield, but they could not penetrate the seemingly soft shield. The bullets fell to the ground and rolled away. At this time, the flying electrician rushed sideways. The dragon gallbladder conjured up thousands of gun shadows and attacked the giant baby like a meteor. It was Dugu Changxin's combat skill, gun meteor. At this time, the flesh and blood shield of the giant baby disintegrated and turned into dozens of intestines. They rolled into the gun shadow that was like a meteor and unexpectedly entangled the dragon gallbladder. Then he swung it hard. He threw the flying electrician and the spear to another corner. With this action, the giant baby threw himself out and pounced on the left leg of the belly snake. The giant baby's face suddenly cracked and split into several petals, like a carnivorous flower. It bit the knee of the mecha fiercely. Suddenly, a crackling sound rang out. The outer armor of the mecha was immediately deformed by the bite, and it was unknown how many circuits inside were bitten off, and parts jumped out one by one. In the cab, an alarm sounded on the command console. Liu Yan cursed, because the knee of the mecha had been severely damaged and could not be used. But at this time, the Veep opened multiple exhaust ports all over its body, and dark yellow mist was sprayed out from them. This is the biological dissolution spray, which is the secret weapon of the Veep, which can quickly corrode the giant beast in the mist. The giant baby is also a kind of creature, and bubbles suddenly appeared all over its body, and then it rotted and melted. It screamed, fell to the ground, rolled out of the range of the smoke, and kept twisting on the ground. But its self-healing ability is too amazing. The rotten muscles and skin grew back in an instant. At this time, Fidian rushed back. Seeing this scene, Dugu Changxin shouted, "This monster is too difficult to deal with. Let's leave here first." Fidian helped the Veep up and was about to carry it away. Suddenly, the V raised his rifle and hit the chest of Fidian. In the cab, Dugu Changxin was shaken by the collision and couldn't help shouting, "What are you doing?" Liu Yan shook her head. "It's not me." She then saw that the command console sounded an alarm, saying that there was an invasion of foreign objects inside the mecha. Inside the mecha, several thick nerves were wriggling, and they released bioelectric currents from time to time, stimulating the mecha, causing the belly snake to make uncontrolled movements. Those few sangi that had drilled into the gaps in the mecha had already parasitized the body of the mecha, and began to try to control the mecha. To make matters worse, the giant baby had fully recovered at this time. Its face full of eyeballs suddenly looked at Fidian, and then spit out a word from its face, "Die." Fidian was immediately thrown out by an invisible force and hit a building covered with flesh and blood, causing the building to collapse with a loud bang, and the rubble rolled down, burying Fidian in the pile of stones. Then the giant baby rushed towards the belly snake, pounced on it, and jumped onto the chest of the mecha. That terrifying face with eyeballs stuck to the panoramic window. Then a voice came out, "Mom." Liu Yan's body quickly appeared blue and black spots. At this moment, many blood vessels in her body ruptured, and blood in the aorta coagulated into solid masses and turned into thrombi. This made Liu Yan near death. What was even more terrifying was that the face of the giant baby opened again and bit the head of the mecha fiercely. Under the effect of the empathy system, Liu Yan felt that her head was about to be crushed. Although reason kept telling her that this was not an objective fact, but her nerves were connected to the mecha, and the feeling now was so real. She couldn't help but hold her head and scream. She never knew that she would make such a desperate cry. Crackling. Cracks appeared on the panoramic window, and the armor on both sides of the cab bulged and deformed. Finally, the mecha system malfunctioned and the empathy system went offline. Disconnected from the mecha, Liu Yan's head no longer hurt, but the eyes were already blurry, and the focus could only be focused on a small area in the middle of the field of vision. She could only see the huge eyeballs on the face of the giant baby outside the deformed panoramic window. The black and white eyeballs were observing her with endless curiosity. In the communication channel, Dugu Changxin's voice came, "Liu Yan. Liu Yan, come out. Come out." Liu Yan smiled. Now she could no longer feel the existence of her body. "Damn, I lost. If I had known I would die here today. I have to try the taste of young grass. I'm not willing." Liu Yan coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then she said as loudly as possible, "Arzin, run away." At this time, Fidian was pressed under the building and could not move. In the cab, Dugu Changxin heard Liu Yan's voice. "Run away. Live." Dugu Changxin's body shook. Then, in the panoramic window, he saw the strange baby lying on the belly snake. With a mouthful of mouth, he bit the head of the belly snake completely. Chapter 152 Yuan. No. In an instant, Dugu Changxin's eyes were bloodshot and his hair stood on end with rage. Yuan Li gushed out explosively, allowing Feridan to push away the huge rock that was pressing on him. The strange baby lying on the chest of Fush looked back at Feridan. He laughed creepily, then pulled up Fush with one hand, and easily pulled away the nearly 2,000-ton mecha. Pulled into the darkness. When Feridan got rid of the huge rock and stood up again, there was no trace of Fush. In the cab, Dugu Changxin stared blankly at the dark streets and strange buildings outside the panoramic window. After a while, he let out an extremely patient and suppressed roar in his helmet. He bit his lip, blood went into his throat, and his mouth was suddenly filled with the smell of rust. Panting, Dugu Changxin looked into the depths of the darkness, stared for a moment, and then controlled Feridan to turn around and walk towards the darkness on the other side. In the darkness, the strange baby dragged the belly snake into a residential area, and then out of its body came out a bunch of blue-gray intestine-like things. They drilled in through the gap of the mecha. As these intestines left the body, the strange baby lost water bit by bit, gradually became dry and flat, and finally only a layer of skin was left. A moment later, the belly of the belly snake, the outer armor was slightly arched, and the belly of the mecha was actually a little bulging. Asterisk 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 somewhere on the street, the two mechas White Dragon and Red Moth stood side by side. They looked vigilantly at the buildings, covered with flesh and blood around them. Fu Sangti did not catch up. Luo Yan and the others temporarily slowed down their pace. In fact, they were also at a loss as to where to go now, especially in the current environment. Depressing. Quiet. Lonely. Luo Yan was fine. After 3 years on the surface, he had long been accustomed to living alone. Not to mention not talking for a day. Even not talking for a week would be no problem. But Lin Wei couldn't do it. A moment later, her slightly low voice sounded. When moving inside the Sangmentia, you need to pay attention to one thing. Luo Yan looked at the screen. On the screen, Lin Wei looked around and said, Yuan Yin. Similar to the Yuan Ying in novels, but Yuan Yin is an entity with certain biological characteristics. And at this stage of the fetal god, the Yuan Yin of the Sangmentia cannot be destroyed. Even if they are killed temporarily, they will be reborn. Also, the Yuan Yin of the Sangmentia is numerous, a total of 108, which secretly matches the number of Xiangang Disha. Luo Yan frowned, thinking that if this is the case, then if you encounter Yuan Yin, wouldn't the only way out be to escape? He asked again, what does Yuan Yin look like? Lin Wei shook her head, I don't know. It's not mentioned in the Book of Three Evils. It only mentions that Yuan Yin will evolve according to the stimulation it receives. This evolution itself will accelerate the growth of the fetal god. Luo Yan thought for a while and said, the Sangmentia is already so difficult to deal with in the fetal god stage. If it evolves to the corpse fairy stage, won't no one be able to cure it? Lin Wei whispered, not necessarily. Think carefully about the names of the 3 stages. Fetal god, evil infant, corpse fairy. The first stage is called god. The third stage is called fairy. Normally, gods should be stronger than fairies. Then why is the first stage called fetal god instead of fetal fairy? My teacher guessed that this might be because in the first stage, the Sangmentia does not have many means of self-preservation, so it puts itself in a nearly immortal state. In this stage, only destroying the life gate can solve the evil. But in the third stage, it is already able to move and has various means of attack, and it becomes killable. In terms of status, the first stage is more unsolvable than the third stage. So the first stage is named after God. She paused and continued. This is a kind of balance. Even things in the Yambu space have a certain balance. This is the cornerstone of the longevity of all things. While Lin Wei was talking, an alarm suddenly sounded in the control room. Luo Yan glanced at the screen. It turned out that the temperature outside was rising at an abnormal rate 40 degrees Celsius 45-50. The rapidly rising temperature made the outer armor of the body become hot. At the same time, the flesh and blood on the surrounding streets and the outer walls of the houses. At this time, holes opened one by one, and hot smoke emanated from these holes. It's bad. Lin Wei said in a deep voice. Sangmentia is going to clean up these invaders like us. Just like our human immune system, after being infected with bacteria and viruses, it will spontaneously generate built-in heat sources to raise the body temperature to a fixed point. Sangmentia, which has some biological characteristics, seems to be able to create a similar immune response to eliminate these invaders like us. Luo Yan immediately activated the Eye of Truth when he heard it, and a silver cross appeared in the middle of his pupils. Looking out from the panoramic window, Luo Yan saw that the space that had become a stick figure was filled with red spots one after another. These red spots were obviously the built-in heat sources of the Sangmentia. They would heat up quickly, causing the temperature in the body of this evil spirit to reach an astonishing index. Luo Yan looked around, trying to find a hiding place. However, the entire space was covered with red spots. However, when Luo Yan looked at the ground, he found that there were fewer heat sources on the ground. The distribution was regular. Every certain distance, there would be an area without heat sources. Follow me. White Dragon strode forward and came to an area without heat sources. Luo Yan raised his gun and fired. Bang, bang, bang. Amid the loud gunshots, the ground was blasted by Luo Yan, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. Soon a soft foundation collapsed, exposing a grey-white bone underneath. It was unknown whether it was the spine of the Sangmentia or other bones. In Luo Yan's Eye of Truth, it had no heat source reaction. So Luo Yan continued to shoot at the bone. The bone was unexpectedly fragile, and soon a gap was pried open by Luo Yan. Looking through the gap, there was actually a hole inside. Seeing this, Lin Wei also asked Red Moth to raise his gun and shoot. Soon the two of them blasted open a gap large enough for the mecha to enter. White Dragon jumped down first and found that the hole inside was only 40 or 50 meters, which was difficult to fully accommodate the mecha. But crouching down, it could barely hide. A moment later, both mechas crouched in this bone hole. Then they used the empty wall to protect the gap layer by layer. They did all this. The space on the ground quickly emitted a red light, followed by waves of heat roaring and flowing. Where these heat waves passed, some green belts on the streets began to burn themselves. Even the buildings, cars, streetlights, etc., which were wrapped in flesh and blood, began to show signs of melting. A few minutes passed like this. The system of the mecha detected that the temperature of the surface began to drop. After reaching the safety index, Luo Yan and his companions returned to the ground. At this time, the ground seemed to have experienced a nuclear explosion. Not only did the matrix melt, but even the buildings were bent like burning candles and collapsed from time to time. Chapter 153, Dark River. Looking at this doomsday scene, Lin Wei couldn't help but feel lucky that she and Luo Yan hid. Otherwise, even if they could escape with the mecha, the performance of the mecha would be greatly reduced. Thinking of this, Lin Wei couldn't help but wonder how Luo Yan did it. But she didn't ask. Everyone has secrets. She has secrets too. Keep a distance, restrain your curiosity, and respect other people's secrets. This is Lin Wei's principle. On the other side, in the cab of the White Dragon, Luo Yan saw that the red in this space was fading. However, in the air around him, Luo Yan also saw another thing. Some black gas-like things. They gathered together, like a quietly flowing dark river, heading to an unknown place. Luo Yan couldn't help but wonder. The bright yellow light is Yuanli. The grey-white light is a living thing. The right ascension light is a heat flow. What do these black gas-like lights represent? Where are they going? Luo Yan thought about it. Anyway, he didn't know where to go now. Why not follow these dark rivers? Without thinking too much, he trusted his instincts and drove the White Dragon. As for whether Lin Wei could catch up, Luo Yan didn't care. She told him some information. He also saved her once. They were even. Since they didn't owe each other anything, they could come or not. Seeing the White Dragon move, Lin Wei immediately followed. She knew very well that it was dangerous to act alone in this space. The two mechas gradually went away. They came to a street park. From a distance, they could see that a mecha was being attacked by two giant beasts. The mecha had only one arm left. The outer armor had many signs of melting. Sparks and smoke were constantly emitted during the movement. Although it could still fight, it was obviously damaged. And there was only one arm left. It looked dangerous. The mecha seemed to have discovered the White Dragon and the Red Moth. The driver inside immediately used the mecha's external speaker to ask for help. Two people, come and help. I'm from the Qingyang City Surface Corps. My last name is Yang. Please lend me a hand. Luo Yan thought about it and thought that in this situation, one more mecha would be a little more help. So he controlled the White Dragon and strode forward, and the mecha made the soft ground shake. In a blink of an eye, they had entered the street park. The two giant beasts entangled with the Qingyang City mecha were a Gudaio and a Ziru. The most troublesome one was the Ziru. This giant beast that Luo Yan had fought alone was controlling many plants and trees to harass and entangle the Qingyang City mecha. The Gudaio was circling in the sky, shaking its wings from time to time and shooting many feather arrows. Luo Yan entered the field and first formed a seal to release the number 10 mysterious technique, so that a phantom wolf ran beside the White Dragon. The wolf beast, condensed by Yuanli, rushed towards Ziru, opened its mouth and bit the forelimb of the giant beast that looked like a human arm to attract its attention. At the same time, Luo Yan fired, and bullets flew over, breaking many vines and plants controlled by Ziru. In midair, the Goo Eagle folded its wings, swooped down, and used the horn on its head to hit Luo Yan. Unexpectedly, while it was still in midair, a little bit of fire flew over, and dozens of small missiles hit the flying beast. In a ball of fire, the feathers of the Goo Eagle fell, caught fire and fell, smashing into the park, crushing countless trees and statues. Red Moth also entered the battlefield. Under Lin Wei's control, this vermilion mecha moved quickly and circled to Ziru's left side, then raised his arms and sprayed 2 fire dragons from his palms. It turned out that the palm of Red Moth had a built-in flamethrower. Ziru was wrapped in vines and flowers. When burned by the flames, it immediately ignited. This giant beast was also a mutant species parasitized by the Fusangi. Its body was fragile, and it could still charge at first. After a while, it fell to the ground and turned into a huge fireball. Seeing this, Luo Yan also turned the muzzle of his gun and approached the Gudao step by step. The muzzle sprayed out lines of fire, hitting the head of the flying beast. Not long after, its fragile head was opened and smashed. The battle was over. Red Moth also burned the corpse of the Gudao with fire to prevent the Fusangi inside the corpse from doing evil. At this time, the Qingyang City mecha knelt on one knee on the ground and then used the internal fire extinguishing program, spraying white cooling mist from the gaps everywhere. It extinguished the fire inside and stopped the smoke from rising. A middle-aged man wearing glasses and looking gentle walked out of the mecha's cab. "My name is Yang Guang." He looked at Luo Yan and Lin Wei, who also came out of the cab and took a short rest. He smiled. "I'm a few years older than you, so you can just call me Brother Yang." Luo Yan did not respond. He took off his helmet, took a breath, and then took out a canteen to replenish his water. Lin Wei did not respond either. She was not the kind of enthusiastic person. Following Luo Yan's example, she put down her helmet and took out a nutrient and sucked it. Yang Guang was a little unhappy to see that the 2 young people who were younger than him ignored him, but he still smiled. "There are 2 more people this time. Next, let's act together. It's better to have 3 people together to take care of each other. Although we are not from the same city, we are all involved in this mission, so we should help each other, don't you think?" Still no response. Yang Guang's eyelids twitched. Then he laughed and said, "I see. Since we are all acting together, it is better to work in groups. As for me, although I'm not a squad leader, I'm at least a captain. I have been driving mechas for several years and have participated in many battles. I have some experience. How about this? I will be the captain, and you 2 will listen to my command for the time being. Is that okay?" Luo Yan wiped his mouth. He stood up. He got into the cab. He ignored Yang Guang. The middle-aged man's face suddenly darkened. He stood up and said, "What is your attitude? Do you know what obedience is? This is not playing a game. This is a battlefield. A battlefield. I see that you are so young. You should just be team members, right? I'm the captain. Isn't it normal to listen to my command temporarily?" Luo Yan had already sat on the chair and put on his helmet. He didn't want to listen to Yang Guang's nonsense. He didn't want to listen to his command. He just wanted to increase his combat effectiveness. He never thought about finding an ancestor for himself. "We are not in the same system. Why should I listen to you, Yang Guang? Besides, we rescued you, Yang. How dare you be the captain?" Luo Yan was about to leave. At this time, the radar alarm sounded, and several giant beast signals were detected approaching. Seeing Luo Yan and Lin Wei both got into the cab, Yang Guang cursed and returned to the mecha. He also found the giant beast signal, put on the helmet, connect the nerves, and achieve empathy. Soon, several huge black shadows appeared in the panoramic window. Chapter 154. Going with the flow. Giant beasts appeared. There were 4 in total. All of them were mutants parasitized by the Fusangi. After changing the magazine, the white dragon took the initiative to attack. The bullets streaked through the air, generating heat from friction, and drew bright lines of fire in the dim space. They went straight to the head of a raccoon. The red moth raised his hands and sprayed flames from his palms to help the white dragon suppress the movement of the giant beasts. Yang Guang was in the cab, watching Luo Yan and the others fight through the panoramic window. He snorted and said, "People with different beliefs cannot work together. Since you are unwilling to obey my command, let's break up here." The mecha from Qingyang City retreated quietly. After a moment, it left the park and turned around to run in the direction from which Luo Yan and his men came. It took a quarter of an hour. Luo Yan and his men killed these mutant giant beasts. In fact, these mutant giant beasts are not too difficult to deal with. Although they can use their original abilities, their body structures are relatively fragile. As long as they are damaged from their joints, they can often paralyze their mobility. If we attack important parts like the head, we can harvest them. Therefore, as long as the number is not too large, it is not difficult to deal with. When the red moth was burning the corpse, Luo Yan found that Yang Wang had disappeared. Luo Yan was not surprised by this behavior. He had seen too much. After the giant beast's corpse was cleaned up, the two mechas continued their journey. Luo Yan opened the Eye of Truth and saw the dark rivers flowing in the space. These black gas-like lights all flowed in one direction. I don't know where they are going. After walking for a while, there was a gunshot from behind. Luo Yan and the others stopped and turned around. Under the illumination of the mecha lights, a mecha was running towards this side in the dark. It was Yang Wang who left not long ago. Luo Yan closed his eyes slightly. He actually dared to come back. At this time, the mecha in Qingyang City used the external broadcast to broadcast Yang Wang's voice. Wait for me, both of you. I'll go with you. The voice fell. In the cab, the radar alarm sounded. At the edge of the scanning area, behind Yang Wang, there were signals of giant beasts. The number was much greater than before. Luo Yan immediately understood that Yang Wang had to run back because he encountered a group of beasts. At this time, a giant beast rushed up suddenly, bursting with strange light, and a stream of red light shot out from the single eye on its head. It swept horizontally and hit the left leg of Yang Wang's mecha. Boom. The left leg of the mecha exploded suddenly, a part of the leg flew out, and the parts were scattered all over the ground. Yang Wang's mecha immediately lost balance and fell to the ground. He looked back, then raised his hand to the white dragon in front of him and shouted, "You two, for the sake of being mecha masters, please save me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you alone just now. You adults don't care about the mistakes of small people." Yang Wang shouted. Luo Yan ignored him. White Dragon turned around and ran without looking back. There was no intention to go back to rescue. Betrayal. Only once and countless times. When Yang Wang quietly left, he had already decided Luo Yan could never trust him again. Lin Wei did not stop. The red moth moved lightly and chased after Luo Yan. In less than a moment, the two mechas disappeared into the darkness. In the cab, through the panoramic window, he saw Luo Yan and the other man leaving without caring about him. Yang Wang cursed, "You two dogs and bitches, you watched someone die without saving him. You will die a horrible death. You will die a horrible death." He cursed and turned around in panic. He raised his rifle with the only remaining arm of the mecha and attacked randomly. The giant beasts rushed over. A raccoon slammed into the mecha. Yang Wang screamed. Under the empathy system, he felt that his stomach was about to be smashed. The mecha flew up. Before it fell, it was caught by a goo eagle, taken to the sky, and then smashed into a building. In the cab, Yang Wang's body was shaking. He was dizzy, and finally caught his breath, only to see a goat face stuck outside the panoramic window. Teoti. The face of this giant beast was covered with herpes, and the ghosts inside were clearly visible. Then Teoti punched the panoramic window. Cracks appeared on the panoramic window immediately. Teoti punched wildly. Yang Wang was panting. His heartbeat was accelerated, and his thoughts were confused. He instinctively unbuckled the seatbelt, took off his helmet, pulled off the neural connection connected to the driving suit, staggered towards the exit. Just then, a loud bang sounded from behind. The panoramic window was smashed by Teoti's punch, and the shockwave sprayed into the cab with fragments. Fragments of all sizes hit Yang Wang's back. He was knocked out and vomited 3 liters of blood. He raised his head, still not giving up, climbed towards the door. Suddenly, the cab went dark. Yang Wang turned around. Then he saw Teoti's hand reaching in, grabbing him. "No, don't come over." Yang Wang pulled out an automatic pistol. He fired at Teoti's big hand repeatedly, but that big hand kept hitting him. Bang! The entire cab was deformed. When Teoti pulled his hand out, Yang Wang was no longer visible in the deformed cab. Or rather, he was everywhere. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. When Lin Wei saw the white dragon stop, she also stopped moving. The city buildings were no longer visible here, but around, there were many neural networks that spread across the space like spider webs. Their surfaces were sticky and varied in thickness. Some exposed blue-black blood vessels, while others had eyeballs or teeth. The ground was no longer that soft matrix. Instead, it was flesh and blood covered with many blood vessels and nerves. On this land of flesh and blood, there were many Fusangi, but these things seemed to have lost their lives. All of them were in a calcified state, and they maintained a crawling posture. The parts of their bodies that touched the ground were adhered to flesh and blood or nerves. But one thing was the same. All the Fusangi faced Luoyan and the other two, and seemed to have crawled out from the same place. In Luoyan's eye of truth, he clearly saw that the dark rivers in the space were contaminated here. They turned into a huge black waterfall like a mountain torrent, rushing into the abyss in front. Be careful, Luoyan reminded, and then controlled the white dragon to move forward. As the mecha moved, countless Fusangi were trampled into powder. The red moth followed closely behind and came to the edge of the abyss. Luoyan blinked and released the eye of truth. With the help of the mecha's light, he found that there was a huge hole in front. Looking down from this hole, it was pitch black below. I don't know what's at the bottom. And in the range of the light, all that can be seen are Fusangi climbing up, but calcified. Could it be that this is where the life gate is? Lin Wei also saw the things below clearly and couldn't help but exclaimed. Otherwise, how could there be so many Fusangi climbing up from below? Mingmen is the core and origin of the Sangmenxia, the starting point and end point of everything in this space. Perhaps we should go down and take a look. Luoyan felt the same way. At this moment, in the bottomless pit below, behind some Fusangi, a shadow suddenly flashed. Chapter 155 Monster. Truth is reactivated. A silver cross appeared in Luoyan's pupils. The world suddenly turned into a simple sketch. Then, below the huge hole, Luoyan saw a group of humanoid shadows climbing up. These humanoid shadows were all formed by the condensation of dark black aura. Dark and lightless. The same nature as those dark rivers. The flesh wall of this huge hole is not vertical, but extends diagonally downward, forming a slope. At this time, those humanoid shadows are climbing up along the flesh slope. Back off. Luoyan made a prompt decision. Something is coming up. Lin Wei immediately retreated and carefully raised the empty wall and condensed the illusion wolf. Luoyan raised his rifle and let the Hyperion heavy mortar behind the mecha be set up. A moment later, a black but chubby hand appeared at the edge of the hole. Then a giant baby climbed up. This baby is about 10 meters long. Not particularly huge, at least it is like a baby in front of the mecha. But its appearance, Luoyan dare not underestimate it. Because it looks almost the same as the Sangmenxia. The whole body is black, and the skin is flowing with a layer of viscous liquid, with complicated and evil patterns. The difference from the Sangmenxia is that the pattern of this baby will not change. And its face has no facial features, but is sunken, with layers of flesh and blood inside, with black and white eyeballs. Be careful, this may be Yuan. Lin Wei reminded, although it is not recorded in the Three Evils book, the image of this thing is similar to the appearance of the Sangmenxia, which should be the unconscious projection of the evil spirit. After the 10-meter high Yuan, another Yuan climbed up. The shortest of these Yuan is 7 or 8 meters, and the tallest is more than 40 meters. Some are chubby like a little fat man, and some are skinny like a bamboo pole. Some laughed. Some cried loudly. Some yelled. Some screamed in fear, chaos, terror, evil. These strange Yuan made the scene eerie and terrifying. Their behavior was unpredictable. After 40 or 50 Yuan Zion crawled out of the hole, some rolled on the ground. Some threw the calcified Fusangi into the holes on their faces. Some screamed at the two mechas white dragon and red moth. Some pounced on their fellows next to them, punching and kicking. Monsters. Absolute monsters. Luoyan felt that these things were 100 times weirder than the weirdest behemoth he had ever seen. Student Luo, maybe we should leave here. Lin Wei said in a low voice. A drop of sweat hung on the tip of her nose. It fell off all of a sudden. Luoyan nodded slightly. He would rather face the same number of behemoths than such a group of monsters. Especially, this group of monsters is difficult to kill. In addition to retreating, Luoyan couldn't think of a better way. But, is it that easy? Luo Yan thought for a moment and said, we can use the illusion wolf to interfere and take the opportunity to get away. If these things catch up, we will run separately. Whether we can escape or not is up to fate. Lin Wei was about to agree. Suddenly, a fat, 20-meter tall Yuan Yin suddenly jumped high. Then it crashed down. With one collision, it smashed Lin Wei's empty wall into pieces. It pounced directly on the red moth. Lin Wei did not dare to take risks, so she controlled the mecha to roll flexibly and let the illusion wolf pounce on it at the same time. The giant wolf condensed by Yuan Li pounced on the Yuan Yin in midair. The two fell to the ground and immediately rolled, crushing countless calcified fusangi. But when that Yuan Yin moved, the other Yuan Yin also pounced on it. Some of them crawled on the ground, some jumped into the air, and some stood up and ran. At this time, Luo Yan formed a seal and released another illusion wolf. It faced the group of monsters, but was pressed to the ground by 3 or 5 Yuan Yin. These things tore it apart frantically with their hands. Their heads opened like petals, and they bit hard. It only took 1 or 2 seconds. The illusion wolf was killed by these monsters. Seeing this, Luo Yan stopped wasting his energy to release the illusion wolf. It didn't work at all. He used the mortar instead. The heavy mortar on the shoulder of the white dragon shook violently, and the barrel retreated slightly. A ball of fire spurted out of the muzzle. A ballistic missile whizzed away. It hit the Yuan Yin and exploded violently. The huge fireball expanded rapidly, swallowing each Yuan Yin into the fire wave. Luo Yan didn't even look at the result. The white dragon turned and ran. The red moth followed. And the insect-like wing armor behind the mecha opened, and a long scarlet flame spurted out from the back of the mecha. Pushing the red moth off the ground, it passed the white dragon at a faster speed, and glided briefly in the air. Then it was forced to land, because of the ubiquitous spider web. At this time, there was a sound of wind above Luo Yan's head. He looked up, and saw a Yuan Yin flying over the mecha, and landing on a spider web. Then it bounced towards the white dragon. It bared its fangs and claws. The many eyeballs on its sunken face shone with strange light. Luo Yan suddenly felt his blood coagulate. His whole body stiffened, and his joints seemed to be injected with mercury. He couldn't move. In the panoramic window, the Yuan Yin stuck outside, with many eyeballs on its face rolling around. Then it raised its fist, and was about to smash it down. Boom boom boom. Dozens of fireballs suddenly exploded on the side of the Yuan Yin. It was a group of small missiles from the red moth. It blew the Yuan Yin out of the panoramic window in an instant. Out of the gaze of those eyeballs, Luo Yan recovered, and took big steps. But after running 2 steps, Luo Yan stopped, because he and Lin Wei were surrounded. One by one, the Yuan Yin formed a circle without knowing when. The 2 mechs, the white dragon and the red moth, were trapped inside. Some of these Yuan Yin lay on the ground, holding their cheeks with their hands, looking innocent. Some rolled around on the ground, but the eyes on their faces were always looking at the 2 mechs. Some pointed at the 2 mechs and laughed. Some had tentacles like intestines all over their bodies. The white dragon and the red moth retreated step by step. In the end, the 2 mechs stood back to back. Just when Luo Yan and the others were ready for a do-or-die battle, a huge, low roar suddenly sounded in the air. Then a strong wind blew. Those neural networks hanging in the air and connected to the ground shook violently. All the Yuan Yin seemed to feel something. Their expressions were not as relaxed as before. They all looked up in one direction. The next second, a group of light and shadow suddenly fell in that direction. It landed in front of the 2 mechs, the white dragon and the red moth. It was a centaur, tiger-painted mecha with green wings on its back. Divine machine, Ying Zhao. After Ying Zhao landed, he suddenly raised a green spear in his hand and pointed it at the sky. Suddenly, the wind was raging all around. A green tornado rose into the sky. All those Yuan Yin screamed and were swept into the air. Then, in the green flashes in the tornado like swimming fish, they were shattered. Chapter 156 Separate Actions. White Dragon's Cab. Luo Yan's eyes widened. He couldn't calm down for a long time. Those troublesome Yuan Yin were crushed by Ying Zhao's attack. What kind of power is this? That is a power that Luo Yan cannot understand. Is this the reason why it is called a god? The function is far more powerful than other mechas. No, it should be more than that. The mecha master inside is also powerful. Xiangang Dragon Rider, Shibi Luo, mecha masters and mechs. Both are beyond the ordinary. That's why this scene is now. Suddenly, Luo Yan saw another goal worth chasing. And this goal is above Zeng. In the endless light, it is so unattainable, but also exciting. Deng deng deng. At this time, another mecha rushed over. The main color of this mecha is black, and the edge of the armor is outlined in red. Even the lines on the mecha are vermilion. The head of the mecha is embedded with a scary face armor like an evil ghost. The overall shape is an ancient warrior. In a blink of an eye, they were nearby. Finally caught up. The mecha used an external radio to transmit. Hello everyone, I'm the reserve of the Changping City Core, Jiuying Yan. I saw Mr. Shibi Luo coming this way, so I caught up with him. Great, I'm finally not alone. This man named Jiuying Yan is very talkative. As soon as they met, he introduced his situation in detail. His situation is very similar to Luo Yan's. As a reserve, he was originally responsible for the security of the outer circle. As a result, he was also sucked in by the flesh and blood gate of the death gate evil. After entering the body of this evil spirit, Jiuying Yan has been hiding. His luck is also quite good. He is still alive today. At this time, Lin Wei also used the external speaker function to transmit her voice. Mr. Shibi Luo, I'm Lin Wei, and my mentor is Dr. Jiuying. A hoarse voice sounded in Ying's Heo's mecha. You are Lin Wei. When I came here, I heard Dr. Jia mention you. Lin Wei HMM continued, there is a hole in front of us, and I suspect that it leads directly to the life gate below. Mr. Shibi Luo, let's seize the opportunity and destroy the life gate. In the Ying's Heo mecha, Shibi Luo was silent for a moment and then said, I will leave this matter to you. The centaur mecha turned around, and the green spear in his hand turned upside down. With the tip of the spear pointing to the ground in the distance, those Yuan are about to revive again. I'll stop them here, and you go to destroy the life gate. Luo Yan looked in the direction pointed by the green spear. I saw one Yuan after another crawling on the ground. But each of these Yuan is only the size of a normal baby, as small as an ant in front of the mecha. It was not Shibi Luo who pointed out. Luo Yan didn't notice it at all. He only saw those Yuan quickly gathered together, forming a huge piece of meat that was constantly squirming. That piece of meat formed a Yuan in a blink of an eye. But this Yuan was very huge. It was already the size of a mecha. It was far from comparable to those monsters just now. Moreover, this Yuan had 5 arms, long and short, fat and thin. There was no head on its neck, but flying green-gray intestines like tentacles, and those intestines had rows of teeth on them. There was a face embedded in the chest, but it was not sunken, but a chubby cute baby face. However, there were no eyeballs in the eye sockets on this face, but 2 long tongues were spit out. There was no tongue in the mouth, but a black and white eyeball appeared. Countless evil and complicated patterns, with this face as the center, extended in all directions, and spread all over the Yuan. This thing made the sound of thousands of babies crying and laughing at the same time. The overlapping sound waves were maddening. Luo Yan made a quick decision, turned around and ran, heading for the cave. He couldn't even deal with those Yuan just now. Now he was even more helpless with this super Yuan. Instead of staying here as a burden, he might as well do something within his ability, such as destroying the life gate. As the white dragon moved, Lin Wei and Jiuying Yan also followed. Luo Yan looked back. The super Yuan suddenly broke apart and split into thousands of small Yuan, trying to bypass Ying Zhao's interception and chase Luo Yan and others. But Ying Zhao turned around, and the green spear rotated, forming a green whirlwind. The whirlwind was full of symbols like swimming fish, generating a huge suction force, sucking the small Yuan back one by one. Those small Yuan chirped, crying or laughing. Some were ejected from the air. Some quickly crawled across the ground. But this time, without exception, they were all sucked back by Ying Zhao's whirlwind. A Yuan crawling in the front tried to get rid of Ying Zhao, but suddenly its feet left the ground. It screamed and grabbed the ground, supported for a moment, and then was swept over. The Yuan kept spinning in the air, and finally crashed into the whirlwind, just like crashing into a meat grinder, and was ground into powder in an instant. The other Yuan also ended up like this. They were all ground into pieces and turned into a ball of blood mist. The ball of blood mist suddenly spun and turned back into the appearance of the Super Yuan in midair. The behemoth fell from the sky and pounced on Yang Zhao. The centaur mecha suddenly slid back, leaving the big monster empty. Then it rushed forward. The long spear outlined green shadows. In a blink of an eye, it fought with the monster. Asterisk 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 somewhere in a corner. In this dim space, occasionally in the flesh and blood, a red light lit up. The faint light illuminated the outline of a mecha. Vegetarian snake. At this time, the belly of the vegetarian snake was already bulging high, like a pregnant woman in her 10th month of pregnancy. Suddenly, the outer armor flew off and fell to an unknown place. Then the parts, lines, pipes, and lubricant inside all gushed out. At the same time, several white ribs stretched out from the mecha body in an open state. Among those ribs, a hand stretched out. Then a Yuan crawled out from it. This thing has already left the appearance of a baby. It has grown hair and walks upright. If it weren't for the height of 20 or 30 meters, it would look like a 5 or 6 year old child. This child was still connected to a section of the umbilical cord. It grabbed the umbilical cord and pulled it hard. It tore it off. Then it walked out of the mecha's abdominal cavity and fell to the ground. It raised its head. Its face was no longer sunken. On the contrary, it had grown facial features. But those facial features were actually somewhat similar to Liu Yan. Just like the child Liu Yan gave birth to. This Yuan turned around and raised its hands to observe for a while. Suddenly, it seemed to sense something. Then its feet merged with the ground quickly. Its body was like a melting candle. It quickly lost its outline and turned into a pool of flesh and blood. It merged into the soft matrix of the ground and disappeared in the blink of an eye. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 157, Life Gate. Bang, bang, bang. White Dragon's heavy steps crushed the calcified fusangi on the hollow slope one by one. While running, Liu Yan suddenly felt that the ground was shaking. It was not the kind of vibration caused by the mecha's stepping, but the spontaneous trembling of the flesh matrix on the ground. Look. Jiuying Yan's voice sounded. Is this hollow closing? Liu Yan looked around. It was just as Jiuying Yan said. This huge hollow, the flesh slopes on all sides, were tightening and closing towards the middle. This made the calcified fusangi all over the slope were being rolled into the layers of tissues and crushed. If they didn't retreat or speed up to enter the vital gate, I'm afraid that the fate of their 3 mechs would be similar to that of the calcified fusangi. Liu Yan said nothing and sped up. White Dragon ran wildly to the bottom of the slope. There was a Super Yuan outside the hollow. That thing could not be really killed. Going out would only cause trouble for Shibiluo. It would be better to rush into the life gate. If the life gate is destroyed, it will definitely be a great achievement. Moreover, it should be easier than facing the Yuan. Lin Wei and Jiuying Yan had the same idea. 3 mechs. Move forward at full speed. At this time, a wave was set off in front of them. The flesh and blood tissue suddenly bulged and then rolled in like waves, constantly rolling in those calcified fusangi. The red moth suddenly took the lead. Putting his palms together, a blazing flame spurted out from his palms. The color of the flame quickly changed from orange-red to dark blue and turned into a plasma state. This blue light sprayed on the wave. A large mass of flesh and blood tissue instantly carbonized and exploded, forming a gap between the waves. The 3 mechs took the opportunity to pass through. After a few breaths, they came to the bottom. But the hole in front had basically closed. Only a very small gap was left. Obviously, that was not something the mecha could pass through. While running, the mortar of the White Dragon fired suddenly. A large ball of flame spurted out of the muzzle, and the barrel slid back. A ballistic missile flew away and drilled into the gap. Boom. The violent explosion shattered the tissue at the edge of the gap. The gap was suddenly torn open, forming a range large enough for the mecha to pass through. But at this time, the tissue at the edge of the gap was growing rapidly. I'm afraid it won't take long. It will close. The wings behind the red moth rose up, and a deep red flame spurted out from below. The mecha immediately flew off the ground and drilled into the gap in an instant. After entering, the red moth turned its fuselage, and small missiles flew around the gap, exploding dozens of fireballs. In the explosion, the newly formed tissues were destroyed again. Then Jiuying's mecha took a step and stepped into the gap. Only the heaviest body of the white dragon was left. Seeing that, the gap began to close again, and this time the speed was faster. In the blink of an eye, the range had been reduced by half. Luo Yan no longer hesitated. Yuan Li rushed into the acupuncture points. Kalen wheel. The mecha suddenly exploded. Yuan Li flames boiled up into the sky. White dragon accelerated. It came near the gap. It suddenly jumped forward. It drilled through the gap. It landed. It rolled. It slid a distance again. It stopped. Luo Yan released the secret method. White dragon stood up. The lights of the three mechs shone everywhere. Under the lights, you can see that there are biological tissues everywhere. Bones, nerves, blood vessels, muscles. When Luo Yan turned around, through the panoramic window, he suddenly saw a flesh and blood door. This door is similar to the one that sucked in many of their mechas at that time. Could this be the life gate of the Sangman Shan? At this time, Jiuying also shouted, "Look, the life gate is there." Following the direction pointed by his mecha, Luo Yan really saw another door. But this door is made of bones. It is grey and white, eerie and terrifying. Lin Wei said softly, "There are so many doors here, look." The light on the red moth mecha fell on another gate. This gate was built by human bodies without skin. It was bloody. It was scary and weird. And nearby, there were various gates. Some were built by skulls. Some were full of illusion and unreality. Some were represented by a bloody mouth. Countless gates, in different shapes, distributed in every corner of this space. The gate of the gate of the gate of death should be one of them, Lin Wei said while observing. The reason why there are so many gates of life should be to confuse the enemy and to protect themselves. Jiuying said, "In this case, we have to destroy all these doors. We will find the real gate of life." Lin Wei thought about it, and there was no better way, so she nodded and said, "Let's do it." The black and red mecha immediately pounced on the gate built by bones, drew out the long sword, and chopped it hard. The gate was smashed. Red Moth also raised his hands, and a dragon of fire spurted out from his palms, sweeping across a door formed by flesh and blood. Under the burning flames, the tissue of the door quickly melted and gradually deformed. Luo Yan did not rush to attack. He opened the Eye of Truth. The silver cross appeared in his pupils. He raised his head and saw a dark aura pouring in from above his head like a mountain torrent. But after those auras entered this space, they kept shrinking and flowed to a corner. There, between several doors of different shapes, there was a calcified fusangi. The dark mist-like aura was actually injected into that inconspicuous fusangi. There is a problem. Luo Yan locked onto that fusangi. The heavy mortar roared again and fired the third ballistic missile. The next moment, in the huge explosion, many doors around that corner were blown to pieces. But in the raging flames and rising smoke, however, there was a black film with a dark surface, which seemed to be unable to contain light. The film spread out in all directions, expanding. Anti-membrane. Lin Wei exclaimed softly, "Student Luo, have you found the real life gate?" Luo Yan did not answer, looking at the anti-membrane. In the anti-membrane, the calcified fusangi still existed, without any damage. Lin Wei's pupils dilated slightly. "We were misled. The life gate does not have to be in the shape of a door. That fusangi is the real life gate. The anti-membrane will block attacks other than Yuan Li. Next, we will use Zuanshu to attack the life gate together." Lin Wei's voice was half finished. Jiuying had already rushed over. The black mecha was full of Yuan Li light, and a sticky blood red flame rose from the long sword. As soon as the flame rose, the moisture in the air evaporated quickly. At the same time, Jiuying's voice came, "No need to bother, I'll break the door." Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly. This guy, is he trying to steal the credit? Chapter 158 Pull. It was Luo Yan who blew up the gap. It was also Luo Yan who found the vital point. Even Lin Wei helped to support the gap. What did Jiuying do? He did nothing. Now when he saw the vital point appear, he rushed to take action. He said, "I'll do it lightly." He wanted to take all the credit. How could it be so easy? Luo Yan's eyes turned cold. The mortar had locked onto Jiuying Yan's mecha and was about to attack. Suddenly, a black shadow fell from the sky and landed on Jiuying Yan's mecha. Before he could see what it was, Luo Yan heard a sharp cry. It was like thousands of nails scraping on a blackboard. His eyes suddenly became bloodshot. Under the driving suit, blood vessels bulged on his skin. Luo Yan instinctively activated viewing mountains and seas. Towering peaks appeared around the mecha, layer upon layer, and clouds and mist were floating around. The phantom of thousands of mountains and ridges appeared. The fatal scream was weakened. It seemed to come from far away. Luo Yan's blood vessels calmed down. Only the bloodshot eyes remained. Looking at it again, the blood red flame on Jiuying Yan's mecha sword had gone out, probably interrupted by the scream. He could no longer use any combat skills or his own divine treasure. Then he saw a Jiuying lying on the chest of the mecha, holding the head of the mecha with both hands and pressing his face tightly against the panoramic window. The Jiuying was only 20 to 30 meters high. The appearance was different from the Jiuying seen before. It actually had hair, and the face was no longer sunken. It was like a baby that had grown up and became a 4 or 5-year-old child. But the face of the Jiuying looked familiar to Luo Yan. Suddenly, it dawned on him. Wasn't that Liu Yan's face? Although they were only a little similar, the feeling between the eyebrows was exactly the same as Liu Yan's. Luo Yan suddenly had a bad premonition. At this time, the red moth passed by Luo Yan. Lin Wen's voice rang out in the communication group. "Student Luo, I'll go help Jiuying Yan. Let's try to entangle that Jiuying. You go destroy the Ming men." Luo Yan was surprised. Lin Wen was quite sensible. This arrangement not only prevented Jiuying Yan from being killed, but also allowed him to work with Lin Wen to fight against the Jiuying. It also gave Luo Yan the opportunity to destroy the Ming men. Obviously, Lin Wen had not forgotten who had found the Ming men. If the Ming men had not been attacked just now, thus triggering the anti-membrane of the Sang Mensha, the Ming men would have been destroyed long ago. This credit naturally belonged to Luo Yan. Now Lin Wen did this, just to let things develop on the original track. The white dragon immediately strode towards the Ming men. However, Luo Yan did not think that Jiuying Yan would be so obedient. In secret, Luo Yan kept a watchful eye. On the other side, in the cab, Jiuying Yan stared at the little girl-like face outside the panoramic window. He looked into the two black and white eyes on the face. Jiuying Yan was like a demon. He couldn't move. His heartbeat was getting slower and slower. He could hardly breathe. At this moment, a blue flame sprayed out and hit the monster outside the panoramic window. The plasma flame turned the monster's hair into ash. Its skin was burned black, and its flesh and blood were separated, revealing its burned bones. It screamed and jumped off the black mecha and fell to the ground. The red moth still put its palms together and chased the thing, using plasma flames to kill it. Wherever the blue flames passed, the ground was burned black and the door exploded. After sweeping a large circle, Lin Wei had to stop attacking. The jet in her palm had overheated and showed signs of melting. If she forced to use it again, it might explode. And this time, the monster hid behind a door. The hair that had been burned to ash quickly regenerated. The carbonized and attached tissue grew rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it returned to normal. Then it flashed out from behind the door and spit out a word viciously towards the red moth. Die. Lin Wei suddenly felt a pain in her chest. This made her cover her chest and cough up blood in her helmet. Although she was not dead, her whole body was sore, and she could not use her strength for the time being. Lin Wei could only shout with the peripheral device, "Jiuying Yan, stop it quickly." It turned out that at this time, while Lin Wei was injured, the Jiuying had already used his hands and feet to pounce on the white dragon. But Jiuying Yan had no intention of intercepting it. He glanced at the Mingman and shouted, "I'm going to destroy the Mingman. Once the Mingman is destroyed, the Sangman Sha and the monster will disappear." The black mecha rushed to the Mingman and the anti-membrane. At the same time, he shouted, "Brother from Guangling City, please entangle the monster for a while." Luo Yan snorted in the cab. He stopped. It seemed that he no longer planned to attack the Mingman. Then Yuan Yin's eyes turned. He looked at Jiuying. He suddenly changed his route. He rushed towards Jiuying like a wisp of smoke. Jiuying immediately shouted, "Brother, is this fun? Even if I destroyed the vital point, are you still afraid that I will take the credit? I will definitely share it with you equally." At this time, Jiuying's figure suddenly became transparent, as if it would be invisible, and disappeared into the air. The next second, it emerged behind the black mecha. It hugged the mecha, and its face suddenly broke into pieces. It was like a man-eating plant with its petals opened. Under the open face, there were circles of tiny and sharp nest teeth. This big mouth suddenly closed and bit the head of the mecha. It bit with a crackling sound, and sparks flew. Ah! Jiuying screamed in the cockpit. Under the effect of the empathy system, he and the mecha felt the same. He felt as if his head was about to be bitten to pieces. Seeing Jiuying entangled with Jiuying, Luoyan rushed to the anti-membrane. Pio-chun raised his sword high. Suddenly, the long sword broke through the air. A flash of lightning was brought up. It slashed on the anti-membrane. Combat skill, Thunder. Now, when Luoyan was at the 4th level of the primary level, this combat skill was greatly increased. With one slash, the anti-membrane first dimmed and faded. Then it shattered like glass, turning into millions of fragments like butterflies flying. The Jiuying on Jiuying's mecha opened its face with two eyes in different directions. It looked at the white dragon at the same time. Then it jumped up from the mecha and changed its target. But Luoyan was prepared. As soon as the Jiuying jumped up, the white dragon suddenly turned around. The last ballistic missile flew out of the barrel and hit the Jiuying's face directly. Boom. The fireball expanded and exploded. The frenzied shockwave swept around. In the midst of smoke and flames, the Jiuying fell to the ground. Its entire head was blown off, and most of its chest was shattered. Both arms were blown off. Only the lower body was intact. At this time, the black mecha rushed out from the flames and smoke. In the cab, under the helmet, Jiuying's eyes were red and blood was dripping from the nose. But he stared at the vital point that was no longer protected by the anti-film. "It's mine," Jiuying whispered in the helmet. Chapter 159, A Sword to Achieve Success. Boom. The blood-red flame ignited on the long sword of the black mecha again. This is Jiuying's Shenzang ability. Although this flame does not burn vigorously, it is actually extremely hot and has violent explosiveness. Jiuying has decided that no matter who blocks his way, he will chop it up with one sword. Even if it is the mecha in Guangling City, it is the same. At most, he will insist that he made a mistake afterwards. Even if he will be punished for it, compared with the credit of destroying the life gate, a little punishment is nothing. But at this time, Jiuying suddenly paused. He lowered his head. It turned out that a tentacle was wrapped around the right leg of the mecha. He turned around and saw that the Jiuying had stood up again. How much time has passed? It has recovered after its head and arms were blown off. And this time, its body is covered with fish scale-like armor, and those scales have a metallic luster. Obviously, this is a new form evolved in response to the missile attack just now. The tentacles wrapped around Jiuying's mecha stretched out from Jiuying's palm. More tentacles stretched out, and they wrapped around the mecha's limbs and neck. They suddenly tightened. The surface of these tentacles was also covered with scales, and they were also very powerful. When they were attracted, the mecha seemed to be immobilized. Moreover, his neck was strangled. Under the effect of the empathy system, Jiuying felt that he could not breathe. Jiuying laughed strangely, and with the help of these tentacles, he pulled himself over. It passed Jiuying's mecha, and swung its other arm violently. 5 fingers on that arm exploded. The fingers flew towards Beilong. They were like 5 small missiles. When Beilong raised the thick armor barrier in time, a corresponding number of blue fireballs were created. The barrier was not blown up. However, the impact of the explosion still shook Beilong's fuselage. Then Jiuying broke off the palm tentacles. Those tentacles separated from its body, but did not fall. Instead, they seemed to have their own consciousness and tightly bound Jiuying. Jiuying took the opportunity to pound some white dragon. At this moment, a red shadow passed by from behind. Red Moth. This mecha passed by Jiuying under the control of Lin Wei. The wings behind it opened, and a circle of red light appeared at the edge. When passing Jiuying, one of its wings flashed. Jiuying broke into two on the spot. Red Moth turned around again, and there was a loud buzzing sound under the wings. A large group of small mechanical moths flew out. Those small mechanical moths rushed towards the broken Jiuying without hesitation, just like they were flying into flames. Then there was an extremely dense explosion, like a gorgeous firework. In the flames and thick smoke, Jiuying fell to the ground. Then the two halves of the body moved at the same time. One part crawled towards Red Moth, and the other rushed towards White Dragon. Behind, Jiuying finally used his long sword burning with blood flames to cut off the tentacle that was strangling his neck. Then he used a few swords to clear the other tentacles. Then he ignored the Red Moth that was entangled by the Jiuying and rushed to the Ming men with all his strength. At this moment, suddenly, dazzling lightning fell from the sky like silver white spears, covering the half of the Jiuying and the Ming men disguised as a few Sangi. They were all covered. The lightning flashed, carrying a breath of destruction and violence. It was like the roar of the god of thunder, causing the fan-shaped area to disintegrate piece by piece. In the blazing white lightning, the half body of the Jiuying was first charred, then the fire flashed, and finally the body collapsed. As for the Ming men, it exploded directly in the lightning and blew to pieces. Jiuying's pupils expanded little by little. He yelled hysterically in the cab, "No, it's mine." He looked at the starting point of the lightning and the White Dragon that chopped the ground with a sword. At the last moment, Jiuying used Thunder, Wanjin, together with Jiuying and the vital point to attack. This fighting skill can only be used with the support of the KO and Wheel secret method. It is extremely powerful. With one blow, a fan-shaped area within a range of hundreds of meters was blown into ashes. If Jiuying hadn't stopped in time, I'm afraid the mecha would have been severely damaged. But the cooked duck actually flew away. This made him unable to swallow this breath anyway. But looking at the Red Moth next to him, he tried to force a smile on his face. He turned on the external speaker function of the mecha and said, "Great. In this way, this Death Gate evil should be solved." Jiuying looked at the black mecha through the panoramic window. The silver cross star emerged. Jiuying saw Jiuying's human-shaped grey light. Seeing a colorful information line above his head, Jiuying focused his mind on that information line. Suddenly, he got some information. Jiuying, 23 years old, Changping City Surface Core Reserve. Jiuying continued to dig out his thoughts. Damn it, my credit is gone. This bastard, I won't let him go. No, I can't conflict with him now. He still has companions. 1 to 2, I have no chance of winning. I'm really unwilling. If this credit belongs to me, this should be enough for me to exchange a god general level machine from the strategic house, right? Bastard. Damn it. Don't let me know who he is. Otherwise, I'll kill him. These thoughts, in the form of text, clearly presented in Jiuying's field of vision. Jiuying's face was gloomy. He didn't like being remembered. He put away the podgen at the moment. Want to strike first. At the same time, outside the body of the Death Gate, the army camps and the underground cities were in chaos. Is the communication still not restored? Can't contact the master. Captain below. What are you doing? If we can't contact you again, you will all be laid off. At this time, a shrill baby cry sounded in the city. Everyone looked at the Death Gate. They saw that the outer black afterbirth suddenly bulged with bubbles. Then it decomposed into liquid and flowed down, exposing the huge black fetus inside the afterbirth. The fetus curled up into a ball, let out a shocking cry, but halfway through crying, the body also decomposed in the shape of bubbles like the afterbirth. Decomposed into clear water, flowing down, exposing the organs and bones inside. Communication. Communication is restored. Oh my god. Many mecha signals have disappeared. What on earth happened to them in there? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The sudden decomposition of Sangmensha left Jiuying no time to act. The world in his eyes began to spin. In this short process, Jiuying felt that the mechas had collided many times, but White Dragon was driving the thick armor barrier, and the outer armor was made of special materials. Such collisions at most made Jiuying dizzy. He was not injured. When everything stabilized, Luo Yan looked at the panoramic window. Outside was a huge rib that rose to the sky like a pillar and then bent inward. Chapter 160 Dragon and Tiger Key. Out. Luo Yan looked around. The Red Moth and Jiuying Yan's mecha were not nearby. He didn't know where they were washed away during the decomposition of the Death Gate evil. The White Dragon stood up. Through the panoramic window, Luo Yan looked around. The Death Gate evil was now only a white skeleton. On this skeleton, on each bone, there were irregular crystalline objects embedded. He didn't know what they were. Around the skeleton was a city that had become a ruin. Buildings collapsed. Roads were broken. Only the suburbs of the city were not destroyed by the Death Gate evil. Therefore, there were still buildings standing. Just to the northwest, Luo Yan saw that behind several buildings, there was a stream of light, surging out. He couldn't help but control the White Dragon and headed northwest. The mecha's steps were so big. Not long after, Luo Yan had already arrived nearby. When he got closer, he found that the light here was very dense, almost gushing, and because of the dense concentration, it formed a light fog. The sound of drone rotors vibrating could be heard in the distance. The base had already sent a drone to investigate the scene. Soon, the abnormality here would be discovered. Luo Yan didn't waste time. He planned to explore the space. The White Dragon bypassed several buildings. Through the panoramic window, Luo Yan saw. Behind those buildings, there was an open space full of vitality and covered with flowers and plants. Just above this place, the stream of light stirred the light mist, and it vaguely formed the appearance of a dragon and a tiger. In the colorful light mist, dragons and tigers appeared from time to time. They seemed to be guarding something. But Luo Yan looked down from a high place. He could not see anything. Suddenly, he had an idea. He opened the Eye of Truth. A silver cross-shaped pattern appeared on his pupils. In his field of vision, everything was reduced to some simple lines. On that piece of grass, Luo Yan saw that the dragons and tigers drawn with lines were lifelike. From time to time, they made movements like dragons and tigers roaring, but no sound was heard. And this dragon-tiger aura, which was like a line drawing, revolved around a ball of golden light. Every time it turned, there were wisps of breath flowing towards the ball of golden light. Merging into it, White Dragon bent down and knelt on one knee. Luo Yan came out of the mecha cockpit holding the splitting star. While maintaining empathy with White Dragon, he came to the ground. He stepped on the flowers and plants, went deep into the dragon-tiger aura, and walked towards the ball of golden light in his field of vision. At the same time, a mecha came from the remains of Escher. It was Jiuying Yan. Just now, Escher decomposed and the world was spinning. When he came to his senses, the mecha was already lying on the ground. He walked out of the remains. He also saw a strange light flowing in the northwest of the city. He was curious and looked for it. Is it an adventure in the novel? Then I'm rich. I can't get the credit for destroying the life gate. It's not too much to give me an adventure. Jiuying Yan muttered to himself. Suddenly, in the panoramic window, he saw White Dragon half kneeling behind several buildings. Is it that guy? Jiuying Yan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Stealing my credit. Now you're competing with me for adventures? I'd like to see. How good can your luck be? The mecha quietly drew out its long sword, burning with sticky blood flames. Jiuying Yan carefully controlled the mecha. Crouching, he walked in the blind spot of White Dragon. At the same time, he turned on the jammer to prevent being detected by the opponent's radar. After a while, Jiuying Yan also saw the open space. He saw the gorgeous light fog on it and the dragon and tiger aura. Then, he saw Luo Yan. That guy got off the mecha? What did he find? Yes, he must have found something to leave the mecha. Jiuying Yan immediately retrieved the picture on the ground and enlarged it. But apart from the flowers and plants all over the ground and Luo Yan, there was nothing special. Strange. Nothing? Jiuying Yan frowned. No, if he hadn't found it, he wouldn't leave the mecha. Suddenly, an evil thought arose. Why should I care what he found? No matter what it is. Wait until he gets it, and then snatch it away. Now he has left the mecha. He won't be my opponent. The more Jiuying Yan thought about it, the more he felt it made sense. Or, just go all out. Kill him. Yes, kill him. Then there will be no evidence. Then I will just make up an excuse. The most abundant thing on the surface is accidents. Malice surged in his eyes. But he didn't act immediately. He was not stupid. He had to see what Luo Yan got first. On the other side, Luo Yan opened the Eye of Truth. He finally came to the side of the golden light. This golden light was like a seed. It floated in the air. At this time, the seed began to swell and sprout. The embryo grew rapidly, broke through the seed coat, and produced the radical and embryonic stem. The embryonic root extended downward, and the roots gradually disappeared into the air. The embryonic bud went up, and turned into a seedling in the blink of an eye. The golden seedlings grew leaves one after another, and the leaves quickly became wider and thicker. Not long after, the leaves looked like a small umbrella. The petiole stood upright and graceful. From here, it can be seen that the golden seed grew into a lotus. Now, after the leaves stood up, it entered the flowering period. The golden petals gradually opened outward, the buds grew, and finally, a golden lotus appeared in the air. Look carefully, you can see that this golden lotus, from the buds to the petals, and then to the stalks, are all composed of indescribably subtle golden symbols. It swayed slightly in the air, exuding a refreshing fragrance. Luo Yan was amazed and reached out to touch the golden lotus. Unexpectedly, when his fingertips touched the lotus bud, the golden lotus suddenly disintegrated and turned into countless golden symbols. Starting from Luo Yan's fingertips, the symbols quickly spread. When they landed on his skin, they instantly sank and disappeared. At this time, Luo Yan could feel that something was nourishing his body. At this time, Luo Yan's body was covered with golden symbols. These symbols flashed for a moment, and then all of them sank into his body one by one. Luo Yan raised his hands and looked at his palms. He could feel that his body and even his Yuan Li were undergoing some changes. But on the outside, he couldn't see it at all. Not even a trace of Yuan Li fluctuation appeared. This scene was even more puzzling to Jiuying Yan. In Jiuying Yan's eyes, Luo Yan stretched out his fingers to the air. Then he looked at his hands again. He had no idea what he was doing. Suddenly, Jiuying Yan's eyes flickered. Could it be that only he can see that thing? He has obtained some kind of treasure? Thinking of this, Jiuying Yan had evil thoughts. He looked around. There was no third person present, except him and Luo Yan. So, Jiuying Yan gritted his teeth. The pitch black mecha swooped forward. It reached the grass in an instant. The mecha trampled the grass and leaves on the ground. The long sword burning with blood flames was raised above the head. It locked onto Luo Yan and was about to chop him down. Chapter 161 Confrontation. After Luo Yan absorbed the lotus, the surrounding light fog and even the dragon and tiger aura gradually disappeared. When Jiuying Yan attacked, the mecha rushed into the open space. The light fog dissipated almost completely. Luo Yan turned his head in the shaking of the earth. He looked at the black mecha behind him, that was like a god. Looking at the long sword raised above his head and burning with blood flames, his face was normal. Luo Yan and the mecha maintained empathy. How could Jiuying Yan's arrival be hidden from him? At this time, he looked at the mecha above his head. His mouth suddenly moved. In the cab, Jiuying Yan understood Luo Yan's words through his lip shape. Idiot. Haha, you are still stubborn. When you are about to die. Before the voice fell, Jiuying Yan suddenly heard the sound of metal deformation from behind the cab. He was about to turn around. Suddenly, his body shook violently. Then he lost consciousness. In Jiuying Yan's helmet mask, a blue-black light and shadow were reflected. On the grass, Luo Yan did not move. He saw the head of the black mecha suddenly broken by a blue-black sword. Countless fragments, parts and even some human body parts fell down. Various things fell around Luo Yan. There were special glass fragments of the panoramic window. There were also arms and bones. A drop of blood fell on Luo Yan's face and then slid down. There was a blood stain on his face. At this time, a drone passed by and took a picture of the white dragon piercing the head of the black mecha from behind. Not long after, the area on the northwest side of the suburbs was full of mechs. People from the exploration corps on both sides of Changping City and Guangling City came. Luo Yan was investigated in a temporary tent. Suddenly, the tent was lifted and several people rushed in. Who killed my team members? The leader was a middle-aged man with a cold and murderous look. In the tent, Colonel Liang Jian, who had been sleeping with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up. Suddenly, a strong wave spread. "This is the place of Guanglin Core. How many people? We don't seem to invite you in," Liang Jian said without any politeness. The middle-aged man with cold eyes felt stuffy in his chest under the pressure of Liang Jian's breath. But he said without any weakness, "Jiang Yan is my team member. Now he died inexplicably. Can't I, as the captain, ask about it?" Liang Jian smiled slightly and said, "Isn't this matter under investigation?" "Investigation? It must be investigated by our Changping City," the middle-aged man said loudly. Liang Jian's face suddenly fell. "What do you mean, sir? Do you want to say that we are cheating?" The middle-aged man snorted. "It concerns the face of a city. I can't guarantee that you won't do it." Liang Jian nodded. Said, "Captain, may I ask your name?" "Zuking," the middle-aged man said loudly. "Okay," Liang Jian said in a deep voice. "Captain Zuking, originally, we thought of just saying hello to your city about this matter. Since you don't believe it, then we will ask the Shangang Dragon Riders to intervene and publicize the results. I'm sure you won't have any objections to this, right?" Zuking's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He received a report that a reserve member of his team was killed. He was immediately furious, especially since the murderer was still under investigation within his own corps. He felt it was unfair. That's why he impulsively came to the door. Now that Liang Jian wanted to ask the Shangang Dragon Riders to intervene and publicize the results, he immediately backed off. The other party dared to do this. Obviously, the reason was probably not on Jiang Yan's side. But now he was in a dilemma and could only grit his teeth and agree. A moment later, a member of the Shangang Dragon Riders arrived. Liang Jian made a gesture. A picture appeared on a large screen that had been prepared long ago. In the picture, Luo Yan was walking on the grass. The light fog was surging around him, and from time to time it formed a dragon and tiger atmosphere. Suddenly, Jiang Yan's black mecha appeared beside the camera. It strode forward. Its target was obvious. It was pointing directly at Luo Yan. The mecha raised its long sword, which was blazing with blood. It was about to chop. At this time, the camera moved. It came to the back of Jiang Yan's mecha. A dark blue long sword suddenly stabbed. It broke into the back of the black mecha's head and pierced through the head. The picture froze. After watching this video, beads of sweat appeared on Zuking's forehead. Then he heard Liang Jian say loudly, "Did everyone see it clearly? This is a video shot by our mecha White Dragon. It's not difficult to see from this video. It was the mecha master Jiang Yan from Guangling City who had the evil intention first. He took the initiative to attack our mecha master, so he was killed in return. Therefore, I think the responsibility for this accident is not ours." After saying that, Lin Wei also came out and said, "When we were in the Sangmentia, Luo Yan discovered the location of the Mingmen. At that time, there was a Yuan Yin interfering with us. I originally hoped that pilot Jiang Yan would cooperate and intercept the Yuan Yin together, so that Luo Yan would have the opportunity to destroy the Mingmen. But pilot Jiang Yan hoped to destroy the Mingmen himself. But in the end, it was Luo Yan who destroyed the Mingmen." She didn't say much. But these few short sentences pointed out that Luo Yan discovered the Mingmen. Jiang Yan didn't take the overall situation seriously, but only cared about competing for credit. And, in the end, the Mingmen was still destroyed by Luo Yan. This constituted Jiang Yan's motive to kill Luo Yan here. Everyone in Changping City was ashamed. Zuking was no exception. At this time, one of his team members stood up and said, "Even if Jiang Yan was the first to attack, you just need to stop him. No matter what he says, he is from Changping City. Even if he is punished, it should be decided by our Changping Corps. You can't kill him without authorization." Yan Wenbo, with a pale face and dark circles around his eyes, laughed dumbly. "Brother, what do you mean? When someone wants to kill me, I can't kill him. But I have to take the risk of being killed, take his weapon first, and then capture him alive. Finally, I will hand him over to you for processing. Is that what you mean?" The mecha master of the Changping Corps hesitated. He did mean that. But after Yan Wenbo's analysis, what he said seemed too stupid. But at this time, another mecha master of the Changping Corps shouted, "No! Has this video been tampered with? Your mecha master is on the grass. Who is controlling the mecha? Is there a third person present in this matter? You have discovered Jiuying Yan's actions, but did not stop him. You deliberately lured him to take action, and then killed him. You are so despicable." A stone stirred up 1,000 waves. People from the two city core accused each other. Suddenly, a wave suppressed the whole scene. The Xiangang dragon rider raised his hand. The scene was quiet. Then he heard him say, "I have retrieved some pictures taken by the drone. From these pictures, it can be seen that after the disintegration of the Escher, Guangling's mecha did not take other people and left alone. So, there is no factor of a third person present. As for why the mecha can still move after the mecha master left the mecha, it's very simple." The dragon rider looked at Luo Yan, his mouth slightly raised. He is a natural resonator. Chapter 162, Fighting to the Other Side of the Galaxy. The whole place was silent. Everyone in the Changping Corps was shocked. A natural resonator. Of course they knew what this meant. The commander of the Guangling Corps was a natural resonator. Because of him, in just 2 years, the Guangling Corps has overshadowed the neighboring cities of Qingyang and Changping. And it was said that the Xiangang dragon riders had already extended an olive branch to Dezeng. If Dezeng was willing to join, they would welcome him at any time. One natural resonator was like this. Now there are two. The people in the Changping Corps didn't dare to think about it anymore. Okay, now that everything is clear, let's go. Next, the work of recovering the remains of the Escher will depend on you. The dragon rider waved his hand. With a light touch, the storm ended. The personnel dispersed. But the dragon rider didn't leave. He smiled at Luo Yan. "Do you know what you missed?" Luo Yan shook his head. Dragon rider pointed at the screen. What was here before was something called Dragon Tiger Key. It is a special energy that appears when the UN force precipitates and solidifies to a certain degree. If you practice visualization in the Dragon Tiger Key, you will benefit a lot. It's a pity that you missed it right in front of you. Things in the world are often like this, and you always miss the good opportunity. This is probably what is called no fate. He sighed and continued. Now we know that the Death Gate evil did not appear in this place for no reason. That things should be attracted by the Dragon Tiger Key. Luo Yan was surprised and said, "Don't things in the Yama repel you and force?" "That's right." Dragon Rider nodded, "But repulsion does not mean that it cannot be used. You should know the Teichu stone, right? In the Yama products like Jiuying, there is actually a Teichu stone with completely opposite properties. It can be seen that, although the Yanfu repel Yuan force, it can use Yuan force. And this also lays the foundation for an idea for us." He didn't say what the idea was. The Dragon Rider patted Luo Yan on the shoulder and went back. Liang Jian came over and hugged Luo Yan. He rubbed Luo Yan's head with his big hand and said, "You are rich. Break the life gate of Escher, a great achievement. Whether in the core or in the strategic palace, you will be remembered. And now, the Xiangang Dragon Riders have also begun to notice you. Do a good job. Maybe one day, you can become one of them." Liang Jian laughed, pushed Luo Yan away, and went to do his own thing. Luo Yan was also happy, not only because he broke the life gate and won a great achievement, but also because he absorbed the golden lotus in the dragon and tiger energy. It seems that even the Xiangang Dragon Riders don't know the existence of the golden lotus, so the Dragon Rider just now regretted that he missed the dragon and tiger energy. Luo Yan had a hunch that golden lotus should be more important than the dragon and tiger energy. He could see it clearly. The dragon and tiger energy was rotating around it. I'm afraid that the golden lotus is the essence of the dragon and tiger energy. It was also the real target of the Death Gate evil. As a result, the evil spirit had not waited for the golden lotus to take shape. Luo Yan broke the life gate, returning to the camp, getting off the helicopter, arriving at the camp of the third squad. The personnel of each team gathered one after another. Luo Yan looked around and found that many people were missing. It seemed that the squad leader's wish had not been fulfilled. Some people would never come back. When he arrived at the location of the fourth team, Luo Yan saw that Kang Shun and Du Changxin were both in low spirits. The captain seemed to have not arrived yet. In addition, Liu Yan was not seen. Suddenly, Liu Yan remembered the Yuan, the monster whose face was somewhat similar to Liu Yan. He immediately had a bad premonition. Xiao Luo is here. Kang Shun waved his hand and smiled a little reluctantly. How is it? Are you okay? He was referring to the confrontation with the Changping Paw. Liu Yan shook his head. Then he whispered, where is Liu Yan? Kang Shun's expression darkened. Then he looked away. Liu Yan. Sacrificed. Sure enough, Liu Yan's breathing sank. The previous joy had been quietly replaced by heaviness. He said in a deep voice, was it done by Yuan? It's a monster that looks like a baby. Suddenly, a silver white flash. Dugu Changxin rushed over, grabbed Liu Yan's shoulders. How do you know? Liu Yan looked into his eyes and said, when I was destroying the life gate, I encountered a Yuan. Its face looks a bit like Liu Yanpeng. Dugu Changxin's whole body was shocked, and he gritted his teeth and said, that monster dead. Liu Yan said, I destroyed the life gate, and it decomposed with the evil spirit. Hearing this news, Dugu Changxin seemed to have lost all his strength. He staggered back 2 steps. After a long while, he didn't look up, but whispered, thank you. Thank you for avenging Liu Yan. At this time, Yan Wenbo came. He glanced at them. He probably knew what happened, but the captain didn't say anything. After a while, Chang Zhang came. The squad leader of the 3rd squad seemed to have an injured right hand. It was bandaged and fixed. He stood in front of everyone. His voice was loud. What are you doing? Why are you all so dejected? Lift your heads. Liu Yan and other mecha masters looked up at him. Chang Zhang's eyes swept across their faces one by one. I know that some people are gone forever. They are your teammates, your friends, and maybe even your relatives and lovers. But don't feel sad for them, because they fought bravely. They are all heroes. One day, we will meet them again somewhere. Whoosh. The wind blew. It blew the grass leaves and blurred everyone's vision. At this time, someone hummed softly, natural disasters have come, and the earth has collapsed. Homes are in flames, and people are displaced. The voice came from beside him. Liu Yan turned his head and saw Dugu Changxin's deep eyes, and he didn't know where he was staring. Then someone in front of him took over the singing. A bird that has fallen to the ground cannot wait for the wind to rise. A sincere prayer cannot wait for a response. A burly mecha master clenched his fists and raised his head. He sang loudly, then we will not wait any longer. We pick up our swords and march forward bravely. Even if we are destined to wither, we will not stop moving forward. Bang. Everyone stepped heavily, singing in unison. Fight, warriors. Don't succumb to the beast. Fight, warriors. Step over our corpses and move forward. Don't stop. Don't let the flower of life be trampled. The singing became louder and louder. Destroy with all your strength, even if blood flows. Expel with all your strength, even if you die. Make an immortal oath here. For that innocent smile, we are willing to fight to the other side of the galaxy. Chapter 163, The Power of Earth Veins. Guangling City. Jiuying Avenue, Luo Mansion. In the study, Luo Xianai is making calls. On the left and right, former Corps Commander Gaolin, the eldest son Luo Nangxing, all waiting quietly. After a while, Luo Xianai put down the phone. Gaolin and Luo Nangxing both looked at him. Just talk to old Zeng. Luo Xianai looked at Gaolin. Old Gao, have you heard of Escher? Gaolin shook his head. Luo Xianai nodded slightly, not caring much, and said, I just confirmed with Lao Zeng that the exploration corps stayed on the surface these days. It's to deal with their evil. Lao Zeng didn't say the details, but told me that Changping City and Qingyang City participated in this operation, and a lot of people were sacrificed. Even the Xiangang Dragon Riders were alarmed. Gaolin said in surprise, it actually alarmed the Xiangang Dragon Riders? In that case, this evil is not simple. Luo Xianai nodded and sighed. The election day is approaching. I didn't expect that such a thing would happen. Luo Nangxing asked, Dad, the appearance of evil should not affect the election. Luo Xianai glanced at him and shook his head. It will affect it. Gaolin also nodded and said, we opposed Zeng, and what we are catching is that too frequent surface activities will bring danger to Guangling. Now that the evil has appeared, if this matter is announced, Zeng can seize the opportunity to publicize it. For example, if there is no surface core, similar crises cannot be resolved. This is to highlight the importance of the core and even Zeng. In this way, Zeng's influence will overshadow your father. Luo Xianai nodded and said, Mr. Gao is right. Luo Nangsing suddenly realized, I see. He continued, then why can't we use this incident to point out that it was the activeness of the core that led to the advent of evil? The study was quiet for a while. Then Luo Xianai laughed. Nangsing is right. But this matter, we have to promote it before the underground city is announced. Let people preconceive and agree with our concept. Luo Nangsing stood up immediately. I'll arrange it. Basin Academy. Luo Yan got out of the car and looked up at the big words on the gate. Then he said goodbye to Xiaoli and walked into the school gate. Although he had only been away for a few days, it made Luo Yan feel like he had been away for a long time. He suddenly realized that the past few months in the academy had given him a sense of belonging to this school. He met with Wei Fenghua and reported what happened on the surface. But he didn't say too much. The details. The core will announce it next. You just came back from the surface, so don't go to class today. Go and have a rest. Wei Fenghua said with a smile after listening to the report. Luo Yan nodded. Back to the dormitory. He touched the table. It hadn't been cleaned for a while. The table was already dirty. Luo Yan rarely practiced. He spent a morning cleaning the dormitory. At noon, Luo Yan came to the restaurant. He heard someone calling his name. Leo Luo. Zeng Shan was surprised and ran over with a smile on his face. When did you come back? Luo Yan's mouth corners slightly raised. In the morning. I'm glad you're back. Zeng Shan patted his shoulder. You went to the surface for several days, and everyone was guessing if something happened. Did you go to fight the Behemoth? Luo Yan shook his head, but did not explain. Zeng Shan did not ask any more questions, but instead sighed. Senior Chen from the second year died, and we all went to the memorial service. Senior Chen's mother cried like a tearful person. Alas, now that I think about it, I chose to go the path of a mecha division. Is it right or wrong? This kind of question, Luo Yan couldn't answer for him. He was silent all the way. In the afternoon, Luo Yan couldn't sit still. He went to the logistics department first and exchanged 7 bottles of Starfire agent. Then he went to the training hall to practice. After sitting quietly for a while, Luo Yan inhaled the Starfire agent and then practiced viewing mountains and seas. Gradually, his mind was completely immersed in practice. As the visualization technique continued to operate, the Yuan force in the air slowly gathered. As these energies quickly poured in through the pores of his body, Luo Yan found that the Yuan force entering his body became more condensed. They exuded a heavy meaning. After being purified by the Starfire agent, the heaviness did not decrease. Instead, it became more obvious. When Luo Yan drove the Yuan force, he immediately found that the Yuan force became more powerful than before. They rushed in his body and made a roar. Like the Yangtze River, under Luo Yan's conscious control, they washed the designated internal organs. Gradually, Luo Yan's organs showed a faint jade luster. As Luo Yan practiced, his body was emitting bright yellow light. In the reflection of the Yuanli light, a shadow of thousands of mountains appeared. At this time, the shadow twisted, like the reflection in the water. Although it was not very clear, it changed visibly with the naked eye. From the original mountain shadow, it gradually evolved into a vague human figure. The human figure was hazy, but it could be seen that the figure was tall and strong. Gradually, some armor appeared on the human figure. These armors were all profound, with a dark brown base color and gold edges and patterns. The aura of golden stone was faintly revealed. As more and more armor emerged, the human figure became clearer. When Luo Yan's mountain shadow turned into a human figure, the ground of the training hall shook slightly at first. Then the vibration radiated to the entire academy, and there was a tendency to continue to spread outward. At this time, if Luo Yan used the eye of true suchness to observe, he would see bright yellow veins emerging from the ground from the training hall to the entire academy. In these veins, the breath with heavy connotations is surging and flowing. It gathers under Luo Yan and enters his body. Those veins are the earth veins. Now Luo Yan absorbs not only the energy of space, but also the earth energy of the earth veins. In the academy. Is it my illusion? Why do I feel that the ground is shaking? I feel it too, although it is not very strong. But yes, the ground is shaking. Is it an earthquake? Fortunately, such vibrations gradually disappeared. When the ground returned to calm, Luo Yan just came out of the training hall. He had finished his training and was delighted to find that the speed of tempering his internal organs seemed to be much faster than before. It was almost catching up with the speed of his training in the cave of Misty Canyon. In this way, it may not take long. He can complete the 5th level of training. If he can maintain this training speed, Luo Yan decided to practice the primary realm to perfection and then make a breakthrough. A day passed in a blink of an eye. On the morning of the 2nd day, when Luo Yan was taking cultural classes, a black car arrived at the school gate. There was a security department logo on the car. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 164 Investigation. In the 1st grade classroom, the bespectacled and gentle teacher Aoshi was giving a lesson. Today we are going to talk about the Yambu space. We all know that the giant beast came from Yambu. So what is this space? Aoshi quickly wrote the 2 words Yambu on the blackboard. Yambu is the name of a big tree in Buddhist scriptures. Because when this space unfolds, it looks like a big black tree covering the sky, so we named it Yambu. The Yambu space was first discovered 3 years after the opening of Gixu. The entrance to Gixu was found at the North Pole, and the Yambu space first appeared at the South Pole. It's probably no coincidence that the two occupy the 2 poles of our planet. After the opening of Yambu space, scientific research teams from various countries have conducted detailed research on it. But until now, our understanding of this space is still very limited. At present, we only know the following points. First, Yambu space is a 2-dimensional space. At least it looks like this when observed from the outside. It has no thickness. Just like this, a video appeared on a projection screen. In the video, the sky is covered by a branch-like Yambu space. The camera keeps zooming in. Then it passes through those branches. When the camera's picture is horizontal with the Yambu space, there is no shadow of the Yambu space in the camera. When the camera moves and is no longer parallel to those branches, the existence of Yambu space is observed again. As you can see, this space is right above our heads. But when you approach and are in a horizontal state, you can't see it at all, because it is flat and has no thickness. Aoshi raised his glasses, but we know that the giant beast has volume and is a 3-dimensional creature. So we guess Yambu space is not without thickness, but its exit is flat and 2-dimensional. This may be the reason for the release of the giant beast. When the giant beast was released from the space, it underwent 1 or more dimensional conversions. Perhaps it is easier to release it in a 2-dimensional way. Or, only when the giant beast is 2-dimensional can it be released. After it is released, it will be unfolded in 3 dimensions. As for what the reason is, it may take generations to study. Maybe. The students listened attentively, and the college broadcast sounded, "Please ask first-year student Luo Yan to come to the principal's office." The broadcast was repeated 3 times. Luo Yan was curious. What did the principal want him to do at this time? A few minutes later, he came to the principal's office. After knocking on the door and getting permission, Luo Yan pushed the door open and entered the room. He saw the principal, Pan Rinfeng. The old principal had an old cat on his knees and was holding it and smoothing its fur. His mentor, Wei Fenghua, was sitting on the sofa on the left, holding a handkerchief and covering his mouth when he coughed. In addition, there was a strange man in the principal's office. The man's hair was messy, like water grass. His eyes were as red as blood, just like Luo Yan's. The man's eyes were cold, and although his eyes were bright red, they gave people the feeling of a venomous snake. To be able to sit in this principal's office, he should not be an ordinary person. But this man was wearing a robe full of holes, just like those homeless people in the surface base. Luo Yan, come here. Weni Fenghua waved and introduced. This is Section Chief Xing Feng of the Special Operations Section of the Security Department. Section Chief Zhao has something to ask you. You need to answer truthfully. With me and the principal here, you can speak boldly. If there is anything, the college will take care of it for you. Security Department. Section Chief Xing Feng. Luo Yan's first reaction. It was the conflict with the Security Department. He thought, is this Section Chief Zhao here to investigate that matter? He nodded immediately. The result. Xing Feng stood up, took out a photo from his pocket, and suddenly put it in front of Luo Yan. Do you know this person? In the photo, there was a middle-aged man. He had a square face and a majestic appearance. It was Wu Changqing, Wu Tijan's father. Luo Yan's pupils dilated slightly, and then he nodded. I know him. Wu Changqing, Wu Tijan's father. Xing Feng put away the photo. How do you know Wu Changqing? As far as I know, you have never seen him. Luo Yan said calmly. I killed his son. I heard that he came to the college to make trouble, so I checked the internet and found his photo on the internet. Xing Feng raised his two red eyes and stared at Luo Yan. Why do you want to check him? Do you want to retaliate against him? Weni Fenghua said in a deep voice. Luo Yan, you don't have to answer this question. He continued. Chief Zhao, are you investigating? You are assuming, or even determining, that it was my student who killed Wu Changqing. Luo Yan's expression changed slightly. Is Wu Changqing dead? Weni Fenghua nodded. Wu Changqing and his wife died in the bedroom. It is said that they were killed by the giant beast parasites he raised himself. But Chief Zhao believes this is a murder. It is currently being investigated. Because you have had conflicts with the Wu family, Chief Zhao believes you are one of the suspects. It turned out that he came for the death of Wu Changqing. Luo Yan looked at Xing Feng. Although Wu Tijan and I had conflicts, I don't know why Section Chief Zhao thought I killed Wu Changqing. Xing Feng said slowly. I investigated all of Wu Changqing's movements in the past 6 months and found that he went to a place when you went to the surface for actual combat testing. The Nevernight Bar. He stared at Luo Yan as if trying to find some clues from Luo Yan's face. He went there and hired a killer. Jiuying. Not long after you came back, Jiuying also came back, and Wu Changqing went to find him. Then that night, Wu Changqing died. Do you know what Wu Changqing hired Jiuying for? Luo Yan's eyes changed slightly. Kill me. Yes, he hired a killer to kill you. Xing Feng said. So, you have every reason and motive to murder Wu Changqing. Luo Yan nodded. If I knew about this, I would have reason to do so. For those who want to harm me and threaten my life, I only do one thing. Let them become dead. Xing Feng slammed the table hard. So you are the murderer. Luo Yan said calmly. I'm not. I didn't even know that I was being targeted in the forbidden area. Chapter 165. Human Essence. Weni Fenghua stood up again. Chief Zhao, I know how you interrogate prisoners. But I want to emphasize that Luo Yan is not a prisoner. At least there is no evidence now that he killed Wu Changqing. So I ask you to stop threatening him. This is the second warning. If it happens again, I can only ask you to leave. Xing Feng nodded. Okay, I will pay attention. He continued. After we found out that Wu Changqing and Jiuying had met, we started looking for Jiuying. But it's strange. This killer seems to have evaporated from the face of the earth. After Wu Changqing died, he never appeared again. After that, he looked at Luo Yan. Luo Yan had no expression on his face and did not respond. Xing Feng turned to look at Weni Fenghua. This is very strange, isn't it? After Wu Changqing died, Jiuying disappeared. It's as if Jiuying killed Wu Changqing and then fled for fear of crime. Or maybe, in fact, it wasn't Jiuying who came back that day, but someone else pretending to be him. The other party used Jiuying's identity as a cover, and after killing Wu Changqing, he abandoned this identity. This can explain why Jiuying suddenly disappeared. What do you think, Director Weni? Weni Fenghua covered his mouth with a handkerchief and coughed twice, saying, I'm afraid only the killer himself knows the answer to this question. Xing Feng smiled. His smile was ugly. That's true. Anyway, the Jiuying line is temporarily interrupted. We don't have any particularly good solution. We can only start with the most basic method and investigate all suspects. So, speaking of this, I have a question for Luo Yan. Zhao Xingkang looked at Luo Yan again. The 24th, the day Wu Changqing died. What was Luo Yan doing at school? Luo Yan shook his head. I wasn't at school that day. Oh, not at school. Then where did you go? Zhao Xingkang asked calmly. Luo Yan said without thinking. I went to the city. Zhao Xingkang asked, where did you go? Luo Yan showed a thoughtful expression, then shook his head. It's been too long, I can't remember. Including the last time. I've been to the city only twice. I'm not very familiar with many places. But I went to buy a light motorcycle. The name of the store seems to be Xiao Fish Store. It should be this. Zhao Xingkang took out a notebook, made a note and asked, where is your motorcycle? It broke down on the way. Luo Yan said calmly, I lost it. Where did you lose it? Zhao Xingkang asked. Luo Yan thought for a while and shook his head. I can't remember. Zhao Xingkang asked again. Why did you buy a motorcycle? Luo Yan said calmly. For transportation. Zhao Xingkang then asked. How many work points did you spend? 1500. You can just throw away something worth 1500 work points. Luo Yan nodded. At that time, I had several million in my card. 1500 work points were no different from a few dollars to me. The reason why he took the initiative to explain that he bought a motorcycle. That's the reason. Zhao Xingkang would find this expenditure if he checked his account. Zhao Xingkang asked a few more questions. Then he stood up and said, thank you for your cooperation, Luo Yan. If there are any new discoveries or other needs, I will come to you. He nodded to Wei Fenghe and the others again. Then he left. Back in the car. While the car was driving on the campus, Zhao Xingkang made a phone call. A moment later, a voice rang on the phone. How is it? Zhao Xingkang said, I have met the student named Luo Yan. Maybe he is not the murderer. But considering that he comes from the surface, his psychological quality should be stronger than his peers, so it is difficult to judge. The most important thing is that I lack direct evidence. In addition, I set a trap during the questioning. I have investigated and found that he took the train on the 24th. But I deliberately asked him what he did at school that day, but he denied that he was at school and took the initiative to explain that he was out. So, the person on the phone interrupted, you continue to investigate. But if the evidence points to this student, then give up and use the giant beast parasite to kill people as a case closure and announce the results. Zhao Xingkang was stunned. Minister, are you sure? The person on the other end of the phone was the Minister of the Security Department, Wu Changqing's brother, Wu Shimo. Sure. Wu Shimo said, I just received the news. That student has made great contributions, and the Xiangang Dragon Riders already know that he is a natural resonator. If this continues, one day he will become a figure like Dizeng. An opponent like Dizeng is enough. No one can handle two. Besides, he has entered the sight of the Xiangang Dragon Riders, and the strategic office will definitely pay attention to him. Maybe they will try to train him next. In this way, even if he is the murderer, there will be many people to protect him. The most important thing is that Changqing hired a killer and killed first, which is a fact that cannot be changed in any way. He will definitely be used by then. In the end, big things will become small, and small things will become nothing. But he is fine, and I will be in trouble. So, if it is confirmed that the murderer is him, this matter will end here. Zhao Xingkang exhaled slightly and nodded. I understand. Asterisk 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 on campus. Luo Yan and Wei Fenghe walked beside the quiet artificial lake. Wei Fenghe stood by the lake and said with a smile, when this lake was just filled with water, Dizeng and I swam here. Your captain was a terrible swimmer and choked on this little bit of water several times. Then he turned around and said, you are becoming like Dizeng. Luo Yan raised his head. Wei Fenghe smiled and said, I have heard about the death gate. You destroyed the life gate, which is a great achievement. The strategic office now knows that you are a natural resonance person. You are gradually entering the sight of some big shots. So the matter of Zhao Xingkang is not worth mentioning at all. Minister Wu of the Security Department is a shrewd person. I bet that, after he knows about the death gate, he will definitely ask his subordinates to end the investigation. He doesn't seem like someone who is willing to bet his future and life for his brother. Luo Yan thought this was the best. Otherwise, the matter between him and the security department might not end so well. Wen Fenghua coughed twice and then said, "The Falcon base is gone." Luo Yan was stunned. Then he reacted. "Were they killed?" Wen Fenghua nodded slightly. "The day after we left, the entire base was destroyed by an unknown force. Everyone in the base was killed. Not a single person was left alive." Chapter 166, The Hangman Banquet. Luo Yan stared at the lake, his emotions unchangeable. He was not surprised by the result. If he was the person in charge, he would probably handle it the same way. Buy out the entire Falcon base to ensure that not a single clue would be leaked. This is the wisest approach. But in this way, Luo Yan whispered, "Now that the line to the base is broken, it will be difficult to find the mastermind." Wen Fenghua nodded. "That's right, but not long ago, Zheng got a new clue. This clue points out that the mastermind is in Guangling City. Now, Zheng suspects that all this was done by Huang Yuanhang, the president of Yuanhang Group. In addition, this clue came at a very timely moment. It's like someone sent it on purpose." Luo Yan didn't have much impression of Huang Yuanhang, but he remembered the name. At this moment, Wen Fenghua's mobile phone rang. He took it out and looked at it. His expression changed, and then he opened an app. A moment later, some information was displayed on his mobile phone screen. Luo Yan walked over. Seeing the word Sangmensha in those messages, I couldn't help but take a few more glances. These messages claimed that a huge crisis had occurred on the surface, and although it had been resolved by the exploration corps, but similar dangers are becoming more and more frequent. This is obviously because the surface core's overly intensive activities have attracted the attention of the Behemoth, which has led to more and more similar dangers. Therefore, the surface exploration corps should stop its activities to avoid bringing a catastrophe to Guangling City. Under this message, there are already many comments and messages. Most of them support the conclusion derived from this message and require the exploration corps to stop or reduce surface activities. Who sent this? Luo Yan raised his head and looked at Wen Fenghua. Wen Fenghua shook his head. "I don't know. This is what the principal found on the public network of the underground city. If he hadn't informed me, I wouldn't have known about it." Luo Yan frowned and said, "The matter of the Death Gate has not been announced yet. The other party sent it first and pointed the finger at the surface army. This should be done by the conservatives." Wen Fenghua sighed. "Published before the underground city announced it, consciously guiding public opinion. These conservatives are getting more and more unscrupulous in order to achieve their goals. The election is coming, and they are now trying their best to canvass votes for themselves. But in order to distort the facts for votes, these people don't even want the most basic morality." Luo Yan agreed deeply. "In this Death Gate incident, many people in the army died. Liu Yan died beside him. What did these people sacrifice for? It was not for the safety of the underground city. As a result, it fell into the hands of those who had ulterior motives. Instead, it became because of the activities of the army that the crisis occurred, causing the giant beast to target the underground city. This is completely putting the cart before the horse. It also makes the sacrificed people not get the respect they deserve." At this time, a hand was pressed on Luo Yan's shoulder. Luo Yan raised his head. Wen Fenghua smiled and said, "Don't mind it. We didn't decide to take this path just to get someone's approval. I can't say all of them, but at least most of the mecha masters I know decided to take this path in order to drive out the Behemoths and take back their homes. This world always needs some people to stand up and take on the wind and rain so that most people can live and work in peace and contentment. We stick to what we insist on. As for other people's opinions, let them be. Do what you think is right and leave the rest to time to prove." After saying that, Wen Fenghua smiled. "Your friend is here." Then he walked away. Footsteps came from another direction. Luo Yan turned around. It turned out to be Yang Leke. After he approached, he smiled bitterly and said, "We are in trouble." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. That night, Luo Yan pulled his tie. At this moment, he was dressed in a suit and tie. His hair was also done. Luo Yan in the mirror looked sharp and stern. The young female stylist next to him was stunned. "Good guy, you look so cool." Yang Lixi whistled. Then he said, "Let's go, it's almost time." Luo Yan asked seriously, "Do you have to dress like this?" "No choice, we are going to a place. No one can enter if you don't dress like this. Just bear with it." Yang Lixi casually patted the female stylist's buttocks, then smiled and pulled Luo Yan away. The two got in the car. The black car drove on the spacious road. Luo Yan said, "What is our trouble?" "Huang Kun." Yang Lixi's smile disappeared. "Do you know Yuan Hang Group?" Huang Kun is the boss of Yuan Hang Group and the illegitimate son of Huang Yuan Hang. He heard about our business in the forbidden area and wants to cooperate. But based on my understanding of him, he doesn't want to cooperate seriously. I'm afraid I can't suppress him alone. I can only take your brother with me. Luo Yan's mind suddenly flashed with Wei Fenghua's words during the day. The matter of the Falcon base. It is very likely that Huang Yuanhang did it. He suddenly had some ideas. Then he asked, "What is the relationship between Huang Kun and Huang Yuanhang?" Yang Lixi sighed. "Huang Yuanhang loves this illegitimate child very much. Because Huang's wife can't have children. Otherwise, I wouldn't have such a headache. Yuanhang Group is in Guangling City, and its size is similar to Kaiming Heavy Industry. Huang Yuanhang and Luo Xianai are very close, but this is just on the surface. The two often arm wrestle in private. But when it comes to dealing with our Captain D, they are surprisingly consistent. In short, businessmen, profiteers. You know." Luo Yan closed his eyes and carefully deduced what he wanted to do. When the car stopped, Yang Lixi wanted to get up, but was stopped by Luo Yan. "Do you believe me?" Luo Yan asked. Yang Lixi was stunned. Then he said solemnly, "Believe." Luo Yan stood up. "Give me the invitation. You keep it in the car." Yang Lixi glanced at him. Then he took out the invitation quickly. Luo Yan didn't explain. He got out of the car and left. Yang Lixi shrugged his shoulders and sat back in his seat. Luo Yan strode forward. In front of him was a club. Junheo Club. Obviously, just as Yang Lixi said, Huang Kun had bad intentions. There were dozens of men in black at the entrance of the club. Luo Yan took out the invitation. A security guard nodded and checked him before letting him go. Led by a receptionist, they came to the banquet hall. Luo Yan walked into the hall. In the hall, there were figures and pairs of eyes, making the hall shadowy. As the door behind him closed, the hall became quiet and the atmosphere was heavy. No good banquet. Luo Yan snorted. "So what?" He strode straight in. Chapter 167. Evil Spirit Rising to the Sky. The receptionist who was in charge of leading the way came to a man in his 20s, who was dressed in a suit and tie, and had a handsome appearance. "Mr. Huang, the one over there is a representative of Hanli Pharmaceutical." The man called Mr. Huang was the rumored illegitimate son of Huang Yuanhang. "Huang Kun." He nodded, holding a goblet, raised his eyebrows, and stared at the door. His eyes fell on Luo Yan. Then he turned his head and continued to entertain his friends, as if he had left Luo Yan aside. Luo Yan had no expression. He turned around. He stretched out his hand to open the door. At the door, a man in black showed his white teeth and stretched out his hand to push Luo Yan's shoulder. He said, "Mr. Huang didn't ask you to leave, so you have to stay." He pushed his hand on Luo Yan's shoulder. Luo Yan didn't move. The next second, Luo Yan raised his foot and kicked the man's knee. With a click, the sound of bone fractures rang out in the hall. The man's knee burst, screamed, and knelt on one knee. Kneeled down to worship Luo Yan. Luo Yan lightly swept his shoulder with his hand. "I'm leaving. Who dares to stop me? Damn it." The man kneeling on the ground suddenly pulled out a dagger from his waist. He rolled forward on the ground and stabbed Luo Yan in the abdomen. Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly. He raised his foot and kicked the other's wrist. There was another bone fracture. The man's wrist exploded on the spot. The dagger fell on the red carpet. Luo Yan kicked out again. His long legs were like whips. He swept the black-clothed man's head. He was whipped into the air and turned several times. When he landed, his head was twisted to one side unnaturally. He died on the spot. The hall was solemn. No one expected that Luo Yan was not only strong in Huang Kun's territory, but also dared to kill people. Huang Kun narrowed his eyes slightly. At this time, dozens of bodyguards in the hall all had unfriendly faces. They pressed forward, surrounded Luo Yan. Luo Yan put his hands behind his back. His back was straight, his eyes were sharp, and he looked around like a tiger. After a moment of confrontation, a flat-headed man roared and pounced on him. He held two blades in his hands, and as he ran, dazzling knife flowers danced. Luo Yan had no expression on his face. His right hand stretched out like lightning. It passed through the exaggerated and fancy knife flowers, grabbed the opponent's neck, and squeezed and shook it hard. The flat-headed man's body softened and fell to the ground dead. He killed 2 people in a row. He didn't change his expression. In fact, Luo Yan's murderer Sora made the men in the room turn pale and the women pale. The bodyguards' foreheads were sweating, and no one dared to rush up first. After all, there were 2 bodies lying at Luo Yan's feet, and they were not cold yet. At this moment, a sudden applause rang out. The applause was from Huang Kun. He had put down the wine glass long ago. Pa pa pa, crisp applause rang out. Then he made a gesture for the bodyguards to retreat. Sure enough, a strong dragon cannot cross the river. I was wondering how that coward young Lixi could suddenly change his nature and dare to kill people in a forbidden place. So they recruited a fierce general like you. Huang Kun narrowed his eyes slightly, then patted his head. No wonder I felt familiar when you came in. So it's you, the student from Basin Academy who challenged the giant beast alone. What's his name? By the way, Luo Yan. Student Luo. Sitting on a low table, Huang Kun picked up an empty cup casually, poured wine into it and said, a guest from afar. Although you killed 2 of my men, but I have always been a generous man. Drink this glass of wine. Let's forget about it. Luo Yan said lightly, I'm here to negotiate, not to drink. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn. Huang Kun's eyes changed slightly. Curious, playful, and then slightly angry. Before he was 13 years old, he grew up in an orphanage. There, he was bullied. After he was 13 years old, he was found by Huang Yuanhang. From then on, only he bullies others. No one dares to bully him. Not to mention, being rejected in front of so many friends like now. As soon as Luo Yan finished speaking, someone flattered Huang Kun. What do you mean? Mr. Huang gave you a way out, but you still went crazy. The man suddenly pulled out an automatic pistol from his waist. He sneered, hurry up and roll over, kneel down, and drink this glass of wine from Mr. Huang. Luo Yan slowly turned his head. He looked over. Then he took a step. The man with the slicked back hairstyle laughed. That's right. But as Luo Yan walked, he walked towards him, and he kept gesturing with his hands, combining some kind of hand seal. The slicked back man was stunned for a moment, then shouted, what are you doing? Stop, or I'll shoot. Luo Yan ignored him. Damn it, you're looking for death. The slicked back man shouted. Shoot. Bang. The automatic pistol spewed fire. There was a flash of light on Luo Yan's chest, and the shadow of armor vaguely appeared on his body. Number 9 Mystical Art, Armor. On the day when he was in trouble with the security department on the highway, Yang Lixi cast this mobile version of the empty wall for him. Luo Yan thought it was quite practical. He learned it from Wei Fenghe for an entire night. Now he uses it to easily block the bullets from the automatic pistol. The greasy-haired man was stunned and then fired several shots. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets fell to the ground one by one. At this time, Luo Yan was already standing in front of him. Student Luo. The greasy-haired man tried to force his smile. I was just joking with you just now. Luo Yan nodded slightly. Seeing this, the greasy-haired man was relieved. He thought, this guy doesn't dare to mess around after all. After all, he is also Huang Kun's friend. The next second, Luo Yan punched him in the chest. The greasy-haired man was stunned for a moment, and then heard a sound of bone cracking. Then the whole person staggered, took 2 steps back, and sat on the sofa, gradually deformed, as if there were no bones, and the body no longer had any human form. On the sofa, a girl next to him screamed in fear. Huang Kun's face twitched even more. But surprisingly, he didn't get angry. He just said with a fake smile, Student Luo, you really kill people without blinking an eye. He was born by parents. Aren't you afraid of hurting his parents' feelings? Luo Yan thought of Wu Changqing and his wife and said lightly, he deserves to die. If his parents are unreasonable, you can let him die. This time, no one dared to jump out to flatter Huang Kun, not to mention threatening Luo Yan. Huang Kun's smile disappeared little by little. He just stared at Luo Yan. After a while, he said, let's talk about business. He made a gesture. The bodyguards took the body away. Huang Kun crossed his legs and picked up the wine glass. Originally, I planned to let Yang Lixi get out and I would take over the business of the Forbidden Land. Now, for your sake, we will split the business of the Forbidden Land 50-50. He snapped his fingers and a man who looked like a lawyer came over. Lawyer Zhao, please revise the contract. Then let him sign it. Huang Kun finished speaking, raised his glass and laughed. Happy cooperation. Luo Yan raised his hand and looked at his palm as if there was something on it that attracted him. Misty Canyon. In order to get that Medicine Valley, we killed the Black Wave Company and did so many things. Now, you say one word. You want to take 50% of the profits? Do I look like someone who is so easy to talk to? Chapter 168. The Thug in Suit. After that, Luo Yan raised his head. A silver cross appeared on his pupils. He looked around. Finally, it landed on Huang Kun's face. Huang Kun snorted and spread his hands and said, nothing to talk about. Luo Yan remained silent. Huang Kun shrugged and said, well, let's have a drink first. To cool down. Let's talk later. He gestured. A young girl walked towards Luo Yan with a plate. On the plate, there was a glass of juice. Huang Kun smiled and said, if you don't want to drink wine, juice will be fine. You should try it. These days, fresh fruits are just squeezed. I guarantee you can't eat it outside. When the girl walked to Luo Yan's side, she accidentally sprained her ankle, screamed, and fell towards Luo Yan. Everyone thought Luo Yan would reach out to help her, but he took a step back. He let the girl fall to the ground and the juice spilled on the carpet. Just when everyone thought Luo Yan had no grace, the girl suddenly rolled to Luo Yan's feet like a whirlwind, with a short blade in her hand. The short blade flashed blue light under the light, and seemed to be coated with poison. She cut towards Luo Yan's feet. This change was beyond everyone's expectations. But Luo Yan seemed to have known this would happen. He raised his foot calmly, then stepped down heavily. He stepped on the short blade coated with poison. The girl decisively gave up the short blade. She jumped up. She flicked her jade hand. A steel spike popped out from a ring on her hand. The girl punched and stabbed Luo Yan fiercely with the steel spike. Luo Yan did not avoid or give way. He burst out with Yuan Li. Suddenly, the blurred figure wearing armor appeared. When this figure appeared, not only did Luo Yan's skin have rock texture, revealing a solid and heavy meaning, even the nearly transparent armor light and shadow of the mysterious art iron armor became textured. As if Luo Yan was really wearing a suit of armor. Ding. The woman's steel spikes stabbed on the iron armor, but could not penetrate it. She could not help but widen her eyes. At the same time, Luo Yan punched between her breasts. He did not know how to be gentle with women. The woman's face changed. When Luo Yan punched, the armored shadow on his body made the same action. Even arrived first. After the illusory fist shadow was imprinted on her chest, Luo Yan's iron fist arrived. The woman spit out blood. The phantom's punch. The clothes on her chest were shattered, exposing her spring scenery. A fist mark was clearly imprinted on her white chest. Then Luo Yan's punch smashed her bones again. She was scared to death. Knowing that she would not survive, she did not retreat. Instead, she used her remaining strength to punch continuously. Luo Yan remained calm. He punched her fist. After the two sides exchanged 6 or 7 punches in an instant, the woman's movements froze. The light in her eyes faded. Then a muffled sound came from the internal connection of the body. It was as if something exploded inside the body. Suddenly, the woman's body fell and shook continuously. Every time it shook, her flesh and blood would explode. When she fell to the ground, she was already dead. She was hit by Luo Yan's fighting skills. Bone breaking. 7 kills. This fighting skill derived from bone breaking. Not only does it break bones, but the yuan li that is blasted out of each punch will stay in the target's body for a short time. When it accumulates to a certain level, it will explode from the inside and shatter the target's internal organs. The power is amazing. Just like now. The woman's body was bloody and fleshy. Not only was it not in human form, but blood mixed with internal organs kept pouring out of her mouth and nose. The hall was silent. Luo Yan was silent too. He naturally saw the armored phantom. Seeing that the phantom not only strengthened the mysterious art, but also could join hands with him to resist the enemy, he vaguely felt that this should be related to the absorption of the golden lotus that was nurtured by the dragon and tiger energy. Luo Yan gathered his yuanli. His attention returned to Huang Kun. He said calmly, "The killer of Jiuying is not cheap, right?" Just now, Luo Yan opened the Eye of Truth and scanned the people in the hall. The identities of these people were exposed, including the Jiuying killer disguised as a waitress. So when the woman pretended to fall, Luo Yan did not help her, but stepped back and was on guard. This Jiuying killer was Huang Kun's greatest support. It was also the reason why Huang Kun dared to attack the Forbidden Land business after Luo Yan killed 3 people in a row. But now, looking at the body on the ground, Huang Kun did not deny it. He sighed. "I underestimated you. I didn't expect the killer of Jiuying. It's not difficult for you." He stood up, sorted out his clothes, and said, "Okay, from today on, I will no longer interfere with your Forbidden Land business." He was about to leave. A hand was pressed on his shoulder. Huang Kun stopped. His face was gloomy. "I've already taken a step back, and it's a big step. Don't push your luck." Luo Yan's mouth slightly raised. He used 5 fingers to exert force. The blood on Huang Kun's face immediately faded. Little by little, Luo Yan pressed it down with one hand. "What are you doing?" Huang Kun yelled. "Are you crazy? I don't care about you anymore. What else do you want? If you hurt me, do you know what the consequences will be?" At the same time, many bodyguards approached, but did not dare to act rashly. Luo Yan grabbed Huang Kun, and with his other free hand, he took out a silver automatic pistol from the other party. "Call Huang Yuanhang. Tell him to come here within 10 minutes. Otherwise, wait for his son's body to be collected." Luo Yan lowered the muzzle of the gun and shot Huang Kun's right leg. Bang! The gunshot rang out. Huang Kun screamed. Blood burst out from the front and back of his thigh. But Luo Yan had avoided his aorta. To avoid excessive bleeding and death, Huang Kun was about to faint from the pain. He shouted, "Call someone if you want. Why are you shooting?" Luo Yan said calmly, "There are still 9 minutes." Huang Kun knew at this time that this madman was not joking. He roared, "Call quickly, idiot. Do you want to kill me?" His assistant finally reacted. He quickly took out his cell phone and made a call with trembling hands. Huang Kun panted and turned back. "You are so brave that you dare to call him too." Luo Yan was indifferent. "Anyway, after tonight, he will know what happened. I'm afraid of trouble. In this case, let's solve it all at once." He looked down and said, "In addition, you talk too much." Bang! Another shot. The bullet passed by Huang Kun's face. Suddenly, a blood groove appeared on his face. He brushed past death. Huang Kun's teeth trembled. His heart beat wildly. He regretted that he should not be so greedy. But who would have thought that it was originally a simple matter? But it would provoke a bad star like Luo Yan. Others, looking at Luo Yan, trembling. When Luo Yan entered the hall, no one took him seriously. But this man in a suit and tie explained to everyone what violence is tonight. Chapter 169 Warning. Huang Yuanhang will not arrive so soon. Luo Yan sat down. Huang Kun was not treated so well. He sat on the ground. Luo Yan pointed a gun at the back of his head. At this moment, Huang Kun was in a very complicated mood. There were dozens of people on his side, but they were tightly controlled by Luo Yan. It was so aggrieved. In the past, Huang Kun had already planned how to avenge this. But now, he was afraid. Because he knew that, if Luo Yan had any ideas, he would really die. No one is not afraid of death, and Huang Kun is no exception. After a while, Luo Yan looked at a bodyguard, bandaged him. He avoided Huang Kun's artery, but a hole was made in his leg. If it is not treated, Huang Kun may not die. The bodyguard hurried over and bandaged Huang Kun. Outside the Junheo club, Yang Li looked at the time. Why did Luo take so long? No, I have to go up and take a look. Just then, one after another, black cars came to the gate of the club at lightning speed. The cars braked suddenly, and the tires rubbed against each other with a sharp sound. Then, the car door opened and someone got out of the car. Yang Lixi said, "Isn't that Huang Yuanhang? Why is he here?" Then, men in black came out of the black cars one after another. Some of them even made Yang Lixi feel terrified. He watched those people walk into the club. Yang Lixi quickly picked up his mobile phone and made several calls. In the banquet hall of the club, Huang Kun had bandaged his wound, but he didn't dare to get up. Luo Yan had no intention of taking away his pistol. At this time, the door was pushed open. First, 2 rows of men in black entered one after another, separating to the left and right. Then a middle-aged man in his early 50s, with slightly grey hair on his temples, but a pair of sharp eyes, strode in. As soon as he came in, Huang Kun shouted, "Dad, save me." If it were in the past, even facing his father, Huang Kun would not show weakness. He had a grudge against Huang Yuanhang. Over the years, he had rarely said such a weak word to his father. Huang Yuanhang nodded slightly, took off the cigar from his mouth, and exhaled a puff of smoke. He looked at Luo Yan behind him. He was on his way here. He roughly understood what was going on. Now, facing Luo Yan, Huang Yuanhang smiled and said, "Student Luo, is it that serious? Even if Akan offended you, you killed so many of his people. Oh, you also shot him. Let's call it even on this matter." Luo Yan looked at the middle-aged man calmly. He said lightly, 50%. I want 50% of the profits of the company under his name. Settlement once every quarter. Huang Yuanhang was stunned. Then he said, "Just for this, you want to see me?" Luo Yan said slowly, "Everything he has, is given by you. You are the one who can make the decision." Huang Kun suddenly surged with anger, but he didn't dare to speak, and couldn't refute. Indeed, if he was not Huang Yuanhang's illegitimate son, I'm afraid I would have died in the giant beast disaster long ago, and I couldn't live in the underground city and lead a life of luxury. Huang Yuanhang laughed. "It seems that you know who I'm very well. You know, and you still dare to negotiate with me. I admire your courage." But Huang Yuanhang's expression suddenly became gloomy. "Do you think I'm a vegetarian? You dare to hit me, Huang. Don't think that I won't touch you, just because you are a student of Basin Academy." Bang! The gun went off. Huang Kun screamed again. This time he was shot in the shoulder. A stream of blood spurted out. He fell to the ground. Luo Yan's hand was very stable. The muzzle of the gun with green smoke moved to Huang Kun's forehead. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. Agree, let him go. Don't agree, kill. Huang Yuanhang's face twitched. It's not that he hasn't seen arrogant and domineering people, but Luo Yan is the first one who dares to be so arrogant in front of him, Huang Yuanhang, and he is so young. Huang Yuanhang narrowed his eyes and smiled grimly. "Okay, 50% is 50%. But this money, be careful, it's hot." Luo Yan stood up and said, "Don't bother." Huang Yuanhang gestured. "Lawyer Zhao, draft the contract." Luo Yan interrupted. "No need. I trust you." Huang Yuanhang looked at him in surprise. Luo Yan threw the gun away and walked towards Huang Yuanhang. Huang Yuanhang's men immediately got ready to move, especially a few masters among them. Yuanli fluctuations had begun to surge from their bodies. Luo Yan seemed to have seen and felt nothing. Step by step, he walked to Huang Yuanhang. He stopped. He whispered something. Then he walked forward. The masters finally shouted. They burst out Yuanli. They rushed towards Luo Yan. But at this time, Huang Yuanhang shouted, "Let him go." Hearing this, not only were the masters surprised, even Huang Kun, who fell to the ground, was surprised. He knew very well that his father was not a good man. Luo Yan had done so many things. Now he has let himself go without the amulet. Huang Yuanhang has no reason to let him go. But reality is so magical. After Huang Yuanhang spoke, the masters and other bodyguards slowly retreated. Luo Yan pushed the door open and walked out. Huang Yuanhang remained silent, and after taking several puffs of his cigarette, he said, "Take the young master to the hospital." He also left. When he got in the car, Huang Yuanhang's mind was still echoing with Luo Yan's words. Luo Yan just said 2 sentences. The first sentence was, "Don't think that no one knows what you did at the Falcon base." The second sentence was, "Mr. Luo asked me to say hello to you." It was because of these 2 sentences that Huang Yuanhang did not dare to touch Luo Yan. The car was driving on the road. The light of the street lamps was reflected. Huang Yuanhang's face was reflected in light and dark. Did Luo Xianai leak my story? Otherwise, how would that student surnamed Luo know? I said that this Luo killed his son, but Luo Xianai didn't react at all. It seems that Luo has been bribed by Luo Xianai. Well, I underestimated you after all. You can even swallow the revenge of killing your son. Buy Luo Yan and train him to be the head of the core. By then, both the underground city and the core will be under your control. Luo Xianai, you are really calculating. Tonight, did you ask that kid to warn Huang? Humph, we'll see. Asterisk 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 in Yang Lix's car. The wind poured in from the window. It blew Luo Yan's hair. Yang Lixi now had a sleepwalking expression. Because Luo Yan just told him, Huang Kun would no longer interfere in the business of the Forbidden Land. In addition, all the profits of the company under Huang Kun's name in the future must be distributed to Luo Yan 50%. In the end, it was Huang Yuanhang who made the final decision on this matter. Yang Lixi couldn't believe it. That was Huang Yuanhang. In the business world, a big shot who could compete with Luo Xianai was actually defeated by Luo Jing. Suddenly, Yang Lixi looked at Luo Yan as if he was looking at a treasure. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.